Chapter 1479. Rongshio looked at Bailey June and smiled casually. Patriarch, even if you have a high status, the rules of the Untion Tower were set by our ancestors. You can't just go against them. What do you think? As long as Jiang Juwan fulfills one of these two conditions, I can spare her from death. Everyone's expression became strange. Of course, Rongshio's sudden words were not without reason. How old was Jiang Juwan now? At most, she was a spoiled young lady. She might have had some talent, but of course it was gone now. Such a person did not look like someone who had made great contributions to the Untion Tower, right? Then, there was only the second possibility. Although the Immortal Water Tomb was one of the 28 divisions of the Untion Tower, they were not related by blood. Jiang Juwan was the young lady of the Jiang family. How could she have the direct bloodline of the Untion Tower? Bailey June was shocked and angry. He stared at Rongshio, trying to find some clues from his face. Did he already know something? That shouldn't be. Those things have been covered in dust for many years. Those who knew about it were no longer alive. How could Rongshio? But Bailey June was not sure. Based on Rongshio's character, he definitely wouldn't say something like that unless he had concrete evidence. But how could he admit it? Bailey June's chest felt like it was blocked by something. He could not breathe. If that's the case, doesn't that mean young lady Jiang doesn't fit the bill? Chu Luiwes said softly. He looked regretfully at the unconscious Jiang Jiwan. I heard that young lady Jiang was only 22 or 23 years old. She used to be a genius. It's a pity that she fell like this. Bailey June was so angry that his face turned red. What a hypocrite. These people probably couldn't wait for Jiang Jiwan to die quickly. Previously, he had used all sorts of methods to coerce her, but now he was acting so hypocritical. It was truly disgusting. Rongshio looked indifferent. Her biological mother passed away when she was young. Now that Jiang Hatian is also dead, she is the only one left. Coupled with the fact that her Yuan meridian is broken, her reputation is in tatters. In this situation, death was probably the only way for Jiang Jiwan to escape. However, these words were like a thorn that pierced into Bailey Chun's heart. Rongshio said, "Clan leader, I know that you have loved Jiang Jiwan very much for many years. Why don't you leave us for a while?" As he spoke, he suddenly took a step forward. This step was like stepping on Bailey June's sore spot. The last string in his mind suddenly snapped. Yuan is this old man's granddaughter. Who dares to touch her? As soon as he finished speaking, there was dead silence. Although many people had already guessed this, hearing Bailey June admit it with their own ears was still very shocking. Everyone knew that the clan leader of the Untion Tower, Bailey June, was obsessed with cultivation his entire life. He was unmarried and had no children. Back then, the various factions of the Untion Tower fought fiercely. He relied on this to defeat the others and become the clan leader. At that time, he said that he had no wife and children. If he became the clan leader, he would be fairer. But now he suddenly said that Jiang Juwan was his granddaughter. It was like a clap of thunder. Rongshio stopped in his tracks. His thin lips curled into an extremely faint smile. "Oh, you have never married in your entire life. How did you have a granddaughter out of nowhere? Clan leader, even if you can't bear to part with Jiang Juwan, you don't have to pour dirty water on yourself just to save her, right? Once you lose this reputation, you can never get it back." Bailey June's temples throbbed when he heard this. His blood surged wildly, almost bursting. Rongshio's words were simply murderous. He took a deep breath and managed to restrain his emotions with great difficulty. He said coldly and sternly, "What this old man said just now is true. Jiang Hetian's first wife, Yuan's birth mother, is this old man's only daughter." Bailey June said every word with great difficulty. He knew that today's action was tantamount to tearing off his face and letting others trample on him. But he had no other choice. If he wanted to save Jiang Juwan, this was the only way. "Grandpa Chun, what did you say?" At this moment, Jiang Juwan, who had been unconscious for a long time, slowly woke up. In a daze, she heard Bailey June's words. She was completely stunned. Bailey June turned around and carefully helped her up. Yuan, don't be afraid. You're Grandpa's only granddaughter. Grandpa won't let you suffer. Grandpa? Jiang Juan really didn't know about this. After realizing the meaning of this sentence, she slowly widened her eyes and didn't come back to her senses for a long time. You're the direct descendant of a Yuntian tower. No one can kill you. Bailey June comforted her. In fact, this was a long story. Back then, he went out to train for a period of time and met a woman. The two of them secretly pledged to spend their lives together and naturally talked about marriage. After the training ended, he planned to go back to the Yuntian Tower first and then take the woman back. But at that time, the Yuntian Tower was in chaos, so he didn't have time to take care of it. In addition, he was not married and had no children, so he became the strongest candidate for the position of clan leader. He thought about it and didn't mention this matter to anyone else. It was about a year later when the Yuntian Tower stabilized. He quietly went back and found that the woman had already given birth to a daughter for him. After seeing him again, the woman seemed to be resentful and committed suicide. All that was left was a lonely little girl who was still in swaddling clothes. Of course, he couldn't bring his daughter back to the Yuntian Tower, so he passed through several places and sent her to a family. For several years, he secretly took care of her. Because he knew that she was his only child, he doted on this daughter very much. Later, he even tried to arrange for her to marry into the Jiang family. Then, she gave birth to Jiang Jiwan. Unfortunately, she suffered a lot of bleeding during the birth and died a few years later. How could Bailey June not feel sorry for his granddaughter? So, at that time, he finally decided to take Jiang Jiwan to the Yuntian Tower and let her grow up by his side, regardless of the various private criticisms. Her food and clothing were all according to the standards of a young lady of a Yuntian Tower. At first, everyone felt that it was very inappropriate, but seeing that his attitude was firm, they didn't say anything. They just thought that he didn't have a child and was deeply lonely. Perhaps he was so persistent because he was fated to be with Jiang Jiwan. As time passed, everyone got used to it and didn't say much. When Jiang Jiwan heard this, she was a little confused for a moment. However, she quickly grasped the main point. She was Bailey June's biological granddaughter. She was the real young lady of the Yuntian Tower. She didn't have to die. Moreover, she could live well in the future. Her identity was even more noble than before, wasn't it? Jiang Jiwan was so emotional that tears flowed down her cheeks as she clutched Bailey June's sleeve tightly. Grandpa, I see. Rongxiu stood at the side and smiled. In that case, let's begin the test. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1480. Jiang Jiwan's tears suddenly stopped. She looked at Rongxiu in astonishment. Test? What test? Bailey Chun also furrowed his brows, seemingly very displeased. Holy Son, are you still doubting Yuan's identity? He had just admitted with his own mouth that Jiang Ziyuan was his biological granddaughter. Saying this in front of so many people had already made him lose all his face. If it was not true, why did he have to do this? Rongxiu smiled. Patriarch, don't misunderstand. I was just following the rules. After all, this matter concerns the legitimate bloodline of the Yuntian Tower. Naturally, I have to be careful. After all, only by confirming her bloodline can we let her acknowledge her ancestors openly. Isn't that right? Jiang Jiwan had to face not only his interrogation, but also the entire Yuntian Tower. Of course, a few words would not be enough to convince them. Bailey June's anger lessened a little. After pondering for a while, he finally nodded. Yuan is seriously injured and her body is weak now. Be careful. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows. It's just a blood test. It's very simple. You don't have to worry. Bailey June did not reply. Instead, he looked at Jiang Jiwan and gently patted her hand. Yuan, bear with it for a while. We'll go back later. In the past, he could only bury this matter deep in his heart to save face. But now, in order to protect Jiang Jiwan, he had to do this. No matter what others would say, he did not care anymore. Jiang Jiwan was touched. She would never have thought that she was hiding such a secret on her body, the legitimate daughter of the Yuntian Tower, even if she couldn't take the position of princess consort. With this identity, she wouldn't be bullied in the future. Grandfather, you're so good to me. Bailey Chun was satisfied when he heard that and smiled. Your grandpa's only relative. Who should I treat well? Chu Liwa watched from the side with a slight smile. This pair of grandfather and grandson recognized each other really quickly. Especially Jiang Juan. Her mental fortitude was really good. She had just witnessed her father's tragic death, and now she was affectionately calling Bailey Jun grandfather. It seemed that she was really happy. That was why she could smile so brightly from a short distance away before her father's body was completely cold. However, when he thought about it carefully, it made sense. In a hopeless situation, there was always a silver lining. Anyone would be overjoyed, right? Patriarch, please step aside, Rong Xiu said. Bailey Jun took a few steps back. Jiang Juan plucked up her courage and looked up at Rong Xiu. However, there was no longer any fear and cowardice in his eyes. So what if she was no longer the eldest young lady of the Jiang family? From now on, she was the direct descendant of the Yuntian Tower. Jiang Juan instantly felt much more confident, and the pain in her body seemed to have lessened a lot. Your Highness. Rong Xiu closed his eyes and raised one hand. A golden stream of light flew out from his palm and quickly condensed in mid-air. Then, a palm-sized grayish-white round stone dial appeared in front of him. The golden flames burned on top of it and finally converged in the middle to form an incomparably exquisite pointer. Chu Liwa watched from the side and was a little surprised. This small stone dial looked very similar to the infinite divine dial that she saw that day. There were also 12 numbers and a pointer on it. Was this something to test the bloodline of the Yuntian Tower? As if sensing her gaze, Rong Xiu slowly opened his eyes and looked at her with a smile. He patiently explained, "This is the infinite divine dial's child dial. It's used to test the purity of the bloodline of the Yuntian Tower. The higher the number, the purer the bloodline. The purer the bloodline, the higher the status in the clan." Chu Liwa nodded. It was indeed related to the infinite divine dial. It was just that the infinite divine dial could test the bloodline power of everyone, but this child dial was used to test the bloodline of the Yuntian Tower. Rong Xiu pushed his palm forward, and the child dial slowly flew forward and finally stopped in front of Jiang Juan. Just put your hand on it. This thing did not require the use of force. As long as one touched it with blood, the result would be quickly obtained. Jiang Juan's hand was covered in messy bloodstains. She could just put her hand on it directly, which saved her a lot of trouble. Jiang Juan stared at the child dial. For a moment, she was nervous and excited. She had seen this child dial before, but she had never thought that she would have a day like this. She held her breath and carefully placed her hand on it. Buzz. The moment she touched it, the child dial let out a buzzing sound. Jiang Juan's heart fell as if it was being squeezed tightly by something. She stared at it without blinking. The descendants of the Yuntian Tower's bloodline usually had a score of 6 or 7. Those who were slightly more outstanding could reach 8. If they could reach 9, their status and treatment in the clan would be extraordinary. She did not know how many points she could reach. Bailey Jun was also watching. Although the talent of the woman who was with him back then was average, his bloodline power was rich, so it should not affect him much. Moreover, judging from Jiang Juan's outstanding talent in the past, she should be able to reach 8 at the very least. However, as time passed slowly, the golden needle on the child dial did not move. Jiang Juan was a little confused. She looked at Bailey Jun and felt a little uneasy. Bailey Jun said, Yuan, try using your other hand." Jiang Juan did as she was told. However, this time, the needle on the child dial stayed at its initial position. How could this be? Bailey Jun raised his foot and was about to step forward. There's something wrong with the child dial. Jiang Juan gritted her teeth and placed both hands on the child dial. She did not believe that she could not trigger the child dial. Bang! When Jiang Juan's hand were about to reach out, the child dial suddenly retreated. The golden needle shattered into pieces with a bang. A stream of light flashed, and the child dial flew back to Rong Xiu. Rongshio glanced at her from the side and seemed to be smiling. The child dial's needle broke on its own, which means that it has touched the bloodline of another clan. Clan leader Jiang Juan doesn't seem to be of the Yuntian Tower bloodline. Are you mistaken? Who knows where this Jiang Ji1 came from? Bailey June's expression changed drastically. Digression. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1481. Impossible. There must be something wrong with this. Due to his agitation, Bailey June's voice became a little sharp and ear-piercing. His old face was filled with shock and anger. Test again. Rongshio smiled, but his eyes were cold and resolute. Patriarch, you know that Zigue won't make a mistake. So why do you have to do this? Jiang Juan does not have the slightest bit of Yuntian Tower's bloodline. Every word was like a sharp knife, ruthlessly stabbing into Bailey June's heart. His footsteps faltered, his vision turned black, and his body turned cold. How could this be? How is this possible? When Jiang Juan was born, he had sent someone to guard her, so there was no mistake about her identity. Then, there must be something wrong with my daughter. I was the one who carried that child back then, and I calculated the time at that time, so it should be my child. Could it be? A terrifying and absurd conjecture appeared in Bailey June's mind, causing his heart to beat violently and his blood to boil, almost bursting. He panted heavily, pressing his chest with one hand, and his mind was in a mess. The surroundings were silent. Many people came back to their senses and secretly exchanged glances, their expressions strange and forbearing. What a huge cuckold! One exciting show. The biological granddaughter, Jiang Juan, whom Bailey June had been taking care of, had nothing to do with him. For so many years, I raised someone else's child, but I didn't even know it. What a joke. They thought that the most shocking news of the day was that he revealed that Jiang Juan was his granddaughter. But they never expected such a huge reversal. And in front of so many people, it's a slap in the face. How exciting. From now on, Bailey June will probably become the laughingstock of the entire Divine Ruins. No one said anything, but their gazes fell on Bailey June. The meaning was unclear, complicated, and chaotic. The sarcasm and ridicule were blatant. The air seemed to have frozen. Bailey June felt as if there was an invisible force pressing down on him, almost sealing him in this sealed space. His face was burning, but his entire body was cold to the bone. Jiang Juan was also stunned by Rongshio's words. She was not a direct descendant of the Yuntian Tower, but didn't the clan leader just say that she was his biological granddaughter? What was going on? Sensing that something was wrong, Jiang Ji1 felt a strong sense of uneasiness. She opened her mouth and looked at Bailey June for help. Grandfather. These two words instantly triggered Bailey June's sensitive nerves. Don't call me. Bailey June abruptly turned around and bellowed. Jiang Ji1 was shocked. Her body trembled, and tears fell unconsciously. Clan leader. In her memory, the clan leader had never spoken to her with such a terrifying expression and tone. But what did she do wrong? He was the one who said that he was her grandfather. He was the one who said that he wanted to protect her and not let her be wronged. But now, in the blink of an eye, everything had changed. She didn't want this test result to happen. In the end, why was she the one to be blamed for everything? In just a few short breaths, Jiang Ji1 fell from heaven to hell, the kind that was ruthlessly stepped on. No matter how muddle-headed she was, she knew what was waiting for her. Her face was pale, and her cracked lips trembled violently. Clan leader, since this is a misunderstanding, then you don't have any objections to the execution of Jiang Juan, right? Rongshio asked very politely. Some people couldn't help but look away and laugh secretly. Rongshio did it on purpose. In front of so many people, he confirmed that Jiang Juan wasn't Bailey June's granddaughter. It was already embarrassing enough. If he asked again, wouldn't he be reminding Bailey June that he was a cuckold? Bailey June's lungs were about to explode from anger. In his life, he had never lost so much face and was so embarrassed. He flung his sleeve and turned to leave. This place, he couldn't stay any longer. Clan leader, Jiang Juan saw that he was about to leave and panicked. If he left just like that, what would happen to her? Clan leader, there's something wrong with this Gu. There must be something wrong. How could she not be the descendant of the Yuntian Tower? She must be. She must be. Bailey June's head hurt. He turned around and scolded. Shut up. The Gu was left behind by the ancestors of the Yuntian Tower. After a long time, it had never been wrong. Just now, he was so shocked that he lost his composure and blurted out those doubtful words. However, he knew in his heart that the Gu was perfectly fine. Not to mention Rongxiu. Even he didn't have the ability to tamper with the Gu. Jiang Juan must be crazy to say that. Jiang Juan was so frightened that her whole body trembled. However, she only hesitated for a moment before crying even harder. She looked at Bailey June with teary eyes. Grandpa Chun, no matter what, I grew up by your side. Don't you have any feelings for Yuan Yuan at all? Even if Yuan Yuan isn't your biological granddaughter, Yuan Yuan has always treated you as her biological grandfather all these years. It would have been better if she didn't mention this. The moment she did, the hatred and anger in Bailey June's heart surged wildly. Treat her well, raise her by his side since she was young. Wasn't it all because he thought that she was his biological granddaughter? However, now that the truth had surfaced, he realized that he had been deceived his entire life. He had been fooled his entire life. He had also become a complete joke. There were so many outstanding disciples in Yuntian Tower, and many of them were more outstanding than her. Why did he dote on her so much? Wasn't it all because what years of affection? All these years, how well he had treated Jiang Juan, how deeply he cared for her, was how painful it was now. How embarrassing it was. Seeing that Bailey June's expression was not right, Jiang Juan was a little afraid. However, she was more afraid of death. Therefore, she hesitated for a moment and reached out to Bailey June. Grandpa Chun, please help you. At this moment, she was seriously injured and didn't even have the strength to stand up on her own. Bailey June was a few steps away from her. Even if she stretched out her hand, she wouldn't be able to reach Bailey June. However, this action was extremely disgusting in Bailey June's eyes. His eyelids twitched violently, and he waved his hand almost reflexively. Get lost. What kind of wild thing was this? She had deceived him for so many years, and now she had the audacity to ask for help. Bang! This time, he was wrapped in anger and full of strength. In an instant, Jiang Juan was sent flying and fell heavily to the ground. Puffed. Jiang Juan spat out a mouthful of blood, and her breathing was weak. She tried to straighten up with difficulty, but she couldn't get up no matter how hard she tried. She could only lie on the ground in a sorry state like an ant. She stared at Bailey June, and layers of despair surged in her eyes. Finally, the corner of her mouth slowly pulled into an extremely sarcastic smile, but it was also bleak and self-deprecating. Her cry was nothing more than a joke. The next moment, before her smile could fully relax, her head tilted and she kowtowed to the ground. There was no sound. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1482. Jiang Juan had been injured ever since she left the wilderness. Although she had been recuperating in the Yuntian Tower, she had yet to fully recover. This time, in order to compete with Chu Luyue, she had even consumed a bewildering fragrance pill without thinking about the consequences. This had caused her Yuan meridian to rupture and severely damaged her body. She was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Bailey June's final attack had become the straw that broke the camel's back. Bailey June had not intended to kill her, but his attack was too strong. Jiang Juan could not withstand it. The crowd quieted down. They were all speechless as they watched the scene unfold. Jiang Juan was lying on the ground. Her body was stained with blood. Her head was tilted upwards at a strange angle. She could no longer move her body. This was the only way she could see Bailey June. Her eyes were bulging. Her gaze was unfocused. Her face was covered in blood and wounds. One could even see the bulging veins on her forehead and neck. Even though she was dead, one could still see how desperate and hysterical she had been before she died. However, at that time, she no longer had any strength to resist or struggle. She died with her eyes wide open. After a brief moment of silence, low voices of discussion quietly spread. TSK, he really is ruthless. He took Jiang Jiwon's life just like that. After all, he had brought her by his side for several years and raised her personally. He really doesn't show any mercy. I don't know where this bastard came from. Why should he show mercy? I think Bailey Chun clearly did it on purpose this time. That's true. If I were him, I would be too ashamed to show my face in the future. It's embarrassing enough to have an illegitimate daughter. In the end, she's not even his. This joke is enough to make me laugh for a year. Ha! Chill. Lower your voice. Bailey June heard it. Didn't you see his expression change? So what? He did this, so why can't others talk about it? Do you think he can come over and seal our mouths? Moreover, this matter would spread throughout the entire Divine Ruins world in a few days. There are so many people and so many mouths. Can he stop them all? Most of the people present had extraordinary statuses. Although they were polite to Bailey June, it did not mean that they were afraid of him. Especially now that the power of the Yuntian Tower was in the hands of Rong Xiu, Bailey June had nothing to do with it. It had been so long, and he couldn't even get a celestial physician to come over. This was already very telling. Coupled with Jiang Jiwon's blood test, Bailey June's reputation was completely lost. Bailey June clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. The veins on his forehead bulged, and his wrinkled face trembled slightly. It was obvious that he was on the verge of exploding. He glanced at Jiang Jiwon, then turned around and left without hesitation. If he looked at Jiang Jiwon's face again, he would only think of those humiliating things. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows when he saw this. Patriarch, are you leaving? Bailey June stopped in his tracks. I still have important matters to attend to in the clan, so I'll take my leave. His voice was hoarse, as if he was suppressing something. Rong Xiu raised his chin. Then Jiang Jiwon's body. Just deal with it with her father. Bailey June's tone suddenly became impatient, and his footsteps quickened as he left quickly. It seemed that mentioning Jiang Jiwon's name would dirty his mouth. Rong Xiu remained calm and nodded with a smile. Okay, have a safe trip. Bailey June did not even know how to speak. In a flash, he disappeared on the spot. Bailey June was gone, and the Jiang family father and daughter were dead. However, to everyone, today's incident was something that they would remember for a long time. Yuntian Tower's patriarch, Bailey June, did not hesitate to confront Rong Xiu for Jiang Jiwon, and even publicly admitted that he had an illegitimate daughter back then. For someone from a first-rate family like him, this was a stain that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Bailey June went all out just to keep his only descendant. However, after all this, he realized that she was not his descendant at all. Wasn't this too laughable? After going into seclusion for a few years, he finally came out, but before he could show off, he had already lost all his face. Rong Xiu turned around and looked at the people from Lingxiao College. Sorry for dirtying the school grounds. Elder Bo Yin smiled and said to the people behind him, Don't worry. You guys go and take care of this. Two elders stepped forward and quickly carried Jiang Jiwon and Jiang Hatian's bodies to the side, and quickly cleaned up the dirty ground. Rong Xiu looked at the sky. I have already informed the Jiang family. They should be here in a while. Everyone was speechless. The Jiang family was very far away from here. How could they arrive in such a short time? Unless Rong Xiu had given this order long ago. He was clearly prepared to take the lives of the father and daughter before today. Originally, everyone was here for Chu Yu. Who would have thought that Rong Xiu would be the one to clean up the family? This man was still very young, but his thoughts were deep and unpredictable. It was as if everything was under his control. A few years ago, when he took the position of the son of Saint, his fierce reputation was well known, and everyone was quite wary of him. However, until today, they realized that they had underestimated Rong Xiu. His mind means talent and strength. He was the best in almost everything. Such a person really couldn't be underestimated. Chu Luiwei turned around, took a deep breath, and then bowed to Elder Bo Yin and the others. Elder Hua Feng hurriedly said, "Hey, little girl, what are you doing?" Chu Luiyue smiled apologetically. "I used a fake identity to enter the academy and deceive the elders and students. I'm really sorry." Elder Hua Feng rubbed his hands. What's wrong with that? Actually, in the academy, not everyone had used their real identities. You didn't do anything wrong, so why apologize? There were too many people who wanted to come to Lingxiao College to study. There were all kinds of people with different identities. There were many people who changed their names and identities. It was just that Chu Yu's matter this time was a little bigger. Tian Ge, it wasn't a big mistake. Elder Bo Yin stroked his beard and nodded. That's right. As long as he didn't do anything against the Academy's principles, the Academy wouldn't pursue this matter. Moreover, you have made several great contributions to the Academy during this period of time. There were countless big and small disasters, but of course this couldn't be mentioned now. Whether you are Chu Yu or Shang Wanyu, you are still a student of the Academy. The Academy will naturally protect you. As he spoke, Elder Bo Yin looked around. The hint was very obvious. They, Lingxiao College, didn't care about being deceived by Chu Luiyue. How could others have the right to say anything? Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief and felt grateful at the same time. However, at this moment, a somewhat abrupt voice suddenly sounded. The matter of the Black Demon Cave has been clarified. Concealing your identity. We can also forget about it. However, there is one thing that Shang Wanyu hasn't made clear. Is the Heavenly Square Cauldron on you? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from a love network. Chapter 1483. Chu Luiyue looked back. The person who spoke was Jin Di. His expression was cold, and his eyes were sinister, like a venomous snake that made one's heart tremble. Chu Luiyue sneered in her heart. Jin Di had made up his mind to bite her and not let her go. In front of so many people, they couldn't directly snatch the Red Cloud Sword, so they set their sights on other things. Many people immediately became spirited when they heard this. The Heavenly Square Cauldron. This was indeed one of the things they wanted to figure out the most on this trip. The Red Cloud Sword was a venerable artifact and was indeed precious, but it had already recognized its master. Unless Shang Yu's soul was destroyed, this treasure could not be used in the hands of others. It was meaningless, but the Heavenly Square Cauldron was different. It was one of the 10 great artifacts of the Divine Ruins world. With such a treasure, the status of the entire aristocratic family would rise to a higher level. Those clans that possessed sacred artifacts were usually more confident in their words than others. Therefore, they were more interested in the Heavenly Square Cauldron. Chu Luiyue smiled when she heard this. Do you think you'll believe what I say? These people were not easy to deal with. It was impossible to end this matter with just a few words. Jin Di laughed sinisterly with a hint of viciousness. As expected of the new princess of the Yuntian Tower, you are indeed insightful. The Heavenly Square Cauldron is related to the matter of the northern region of the primitive world. It is of great significance. Not only me, I believe everyone here also wants to figure it out, right? Some people nodded in agreement. That's not unreasonable. In fact, we are mainly here to figure out this matter. That's right. If everyone could deal with this matter peacefully, that would naturally be the best. If it is proven that you have nothing to do with this matter, then we will apologize. As if they could tell that Rongxiu cared a lot about this princess consort. Everyone's tone was much more polite when they spoke. Their attitude was also not as overbearing as before. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows moved slightly, but she did not take this matter to heart. In the beginning, in their eyes, she was just a youth without any background. With their status, they naturally wouldn't put her in their eyes. In the Divine Ruins world, this was nothing out of the ordinary. There was nothing to care about. But the most important thing was, how was he going to deal with the Heavenly Square Sacred Cauldron? She chuckled and said, I'm already very grateful that everyone is magnanimous enough to not haggle over the previous matters with me. As for the Heavenly Square Cauldron, I will cooperate with the investigation and inquiries. Senior Golden Flute, what do you want to do? Jin Di slowly sat up straight. To be honest, my Golden Wing sect has a replica of the heavenly square cauldron that has been preserved for hundreds of years. Rumor has it that this item appeared at the same time as the real one. At that time, there were two other identical replicas. The heavenly square cauldron is a supreme treasure, so there are fragments. Every time it appeared, it would use a portion of its power to create a few replicas to confuse everyone. Only those who are truly fated and capable can obtain treasures. It's a pity that my Golden Wing sect doesn't have such luck and only obtain a replica. Fortunately, although it's a replica, it still has a portion of the heavenly square cauldron's aura. When it encounters the real one, it will have a strong reaction. As Jean-D spoke, he stretched out his hand with his palm facing upwards. A small, transparent square cauldron suddenly appeared in his hand. Chu Yue's pupils shrank slightly. That thing was indeed exactly the same as the real heavenly square cauldron. Shang Guanyu, if you really have a clear conscience, just hold this thing in your hand. If it doesn't have any reaction, it proves that you don't have the heavenly square cauldron. Otherwise, Jean-D snorted. The meaning of his words was self-evident. Everyone did not expect that Jean-D actually still had such a move. For a moment, they all looked at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and nodded. Good. This move was indeed brilliant. She had to accept it. However, there were some things that were better to clarify. The Golden Wing sect is indeed a big sect with a deep foundation. They even have such a treasure. Chu Luiyue seemed to be very sincere in his praise. Although it's not the real heavenly square cauldron, such an item is indeed a rare treasure. Jean-D's eyes were proud. But why didn't you take it out last time in the northern region of primeval desolation? Chu Luiyue changed the topic. If you were willing to take action at that time and directly identify that it was a fake heavenly square cauldron, then everyone should be able to save a lot of trouble, right? Perhaps there would be fewer casualties. What do you think? Chu Luiyue said, frowning slightly and shaking his head as if he was very regretful. Jean-D choked. Wasn't he accusing the Golden Wing sect of standing by and doing nothing? This item wasn't in my hands at that time. He avoided Chu Luiyue's eyes, his expression somewhat evasive. After all, it's a precious item. It has been enshrined in the ancestral temple of the Golden Wing sect for many years. These words were a little ridiculous. This thing was indeed a treasure, but at that time, everyone went to the northern region of primeval desolation for the heavenly square cauldron. How could their people not bring this thing with them to distinguish whether it was real or fake? It was most likely that they had obtained this item recently. Purpose, of course, it was for her. I just don't know where they got this thing from. Chu Luiyue thought to himself. There were quite a few people who wanted to deal with her. In the open and in the dark, they had all gathered together. Chu Luiyue stared at Jean-D for a while. Jean-D flew into a rage out of humiliation and stood up angrily. What? Are you feeling guilty and don't want to investigate anymore? Chu Luiyue curled his lips into a smile. Senior Jean-D, why are you in such a hurry? I've already said that I will definitely cooperate with this investigation and inquiry. However, this matter involves my reputation, so I naturally have to be cautious. Jean-D was embarrassed and sat back down, still speaking in a rough voice. You will know the truth once you test it. This was to push all the blame to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue nodded. Okay. Jean-D was delighted and immediately waved his hand. The small, transparent square cauldron immediately flew toward Chu Luiyue. Chu Yue's force surged in his palm and quickly put away the thing. The square cauldron stood quietly in Chu Yue's palm. Its entire body was transparent, lustrous, clear, and pure. Chu Luiyue looked at it carefully. Just now, she felt that it looked very similar from afar, but when she looked closer, she could feel that it was different from the real thing. Ordinary people couldn't see it, but she was the most familiar with the heavenly square cauldron, so she could easily distinguish it. At this moment, a ball of transparent flame suddenly condensed in the small, transparent square cauldron. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Buzz! The heavenly square cauldron in her body rumbled. Digression. The comment section said that is Bailey June's granddaughter. Are you demons? 6 o'clock, mobile users. Please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1484. Crack. A crisp cracking sound was heard. The transparent square cauldron in Chu Liuyue's hand was instantly covered with fine cracks. Her heart sank, and she immediately suppressed the heavenly square cauldron in her body. However, the connection between the cauldron and the cauldron was so tight that it seemed to be entangled by countless invisible lines. It was impossible to completely block it. The next moment, the small, transparent square cauldron shattered with a loud bang. Bang! Pieces of the cauldron flew everywhere. They turned into countless streaks of light and scattered in all directions. Jindi immediately stood up and pointed at Chu Liyue angrily. The heavenly square cauldron is with you. Everyone was shocked by his words. In an instant, everyone's attention was focused on Chu Liyue, and their expressions were uncertain. Dead silence. Jindi suppressed the shock in his heart and raised his voice to reprimand. Everyone, you saw it with your own eyes, right? The moment the replica reached Shanghai Yu's hand, it suddenly exploded. If she didn't have the real heavenly square cauldron with her, there wouldn't be such a big reaction. The evidence was conclusive in front of everyone's eyes. Shanghai Yu, do you still want to deny it this time? Chu Liyue frowned. I see. She had never seen the so-called replica before. Although she knew there might be a reaction, she didn't expect it to be so sudden. She didn't have any time to prepare, and everything happened just like that. Moreover, with so many people watching, it would be difficult for her to edit it even if she wanted to. Countless pairs of eyes fell on Chu Liyue as if they were real. If the heavenly square cauldron was related to her, didn't it mean that she might have known about what happened in the northern region of the untainted land long ago? On the side of Lingxiao College, Elder Bo Yin and the others were all stunned. Didn't she say that the heavenly square cauldron was one of the 10 great divine artifacts and had nothing to do with her? What's going on now? Jindi chased after her and sneered. What's wrong? Don't you dare to speak? Weren't you very confident just now? Now, before he could finish speaking, his complacent words came to an abrupt halt. It was as if someone had suddenly grabbed him by the neck, and he let out a short and hurried cry of pain. Everyone turned their heads and saw that Jindi's face had turned the color of a pig's liver. His hands were clenched in front of his neck, as if he was desperately pulling something. Looking carefully, one could vaguely see that a golden thread had flown to Jindi's side and was tightly wrapped around his neck. This was what he wanted to break free from. Golden threads. Many people looked at Rongxiu with trepidation. Noisy. Rongxiu's voice was cold, and his expression was indifferent. For some reason, it sent chills down people's spines. This man was born with a sense of nobility in his bones. She just stood there casually. She had nothing to do with romance, yet she was so noble that people could only look up to her. It was clear that some of the people present were on equal footing with him. In terms of seniority, they were much higher than him. However, his aura had never lost. Even Jindi's heart skipped a beat when he met those cold and deep eyes. He swallowed the curses that were about to come out of his mouth. This Rongxiu could even humiliate his own family's patriarch in public. He could also quietly change the master of the immortal water tomb, which was the most powerful force under his banner. Happy to be a pushover. There was nothing in this world that he couldn't do. Golden Flute swallowed hard and stammered. What's the matter? I just wanted to help everyone find out. Perhaps he was intimidated by Rongxiu's power, but his voice was much softer. Rongxiu, he's right. Today we're all here for this. Now that we've found some clues, I'm afraid it's not appropriate to just let it go, right? Someone said. This was not to help Jindi, but to help themselves. Now that the heavenly square Shengding cauldron had been confirmed to be in Shangguan Yu's possession, they would not let it go. That's right. Jindi's attitude is a bit aggressive, but we still have to solve the problem, don't we? Rongxiu, Although the Yuntian Tower did not publicly participate in the Eldritch Wilderness's Northern Region incident, you were there at the time. This incident is also related to you. Besides, Shangguan Yu is your wife. It's not appropriate for you to side with her, is it? Everyone calm down. We can talk about this peacefully. Someone tried to smooth things over. Shangguan Yu hasn't said anything yet. Let's hear it first. Chu Liuyue's lips curved up slightly, and it was very light. His words seemed fair and impartial, but in fact, he was forcing her to give an explanation. Rongxiu narrowed his eyes, and his aura suddenly turned cold. He hated it when people threatened him. At that moment, a soft and warm hand suddenly reached over. Rongxiu turned around and saw Chu Liyue smiling brightly. She gently scratched his broad palm, and her eyes curved into crescents. Let me explain this matter. This time, it was as if Rongxiu's heart was being scratched. His eyebrows twitched slightly, and he quietly held her mischievous little hand. He stared at her determined and persistent eyes for a while before he gently nodded. If you want to say it, then say it. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. His voice was light as he enunciated each word clearly. I'm the wife of the Yuntian Tower. Why can't she have a sage artifact? He was unreasonable, yet he was arrogant and overbearing. Many people's expressions changed. Rongxiu's words were threatening. It seemed like he was going to protect Shangguan Yu until the end. Chu Liyue blinked. This man, her red lips curled up. Her face was so beautiful that it could cause the downfall of a city. Her eyes seemed to fill the sky. Just one look at her was enough to make one's heart flutter and be immersed in it. She moved closer and motioned for Rongxiu to lower his head. Su Ren bent down and whispered into her ear. She laughed, her voice very low. My man is such a good person. Of course, I won't cause him any trouble. As she spoke, her lips parted and closed. Her soft and moist breath drifted into his ears. Half of Rongxiu's body seemed to heat up as well, and the originally suppressed anger in his heart instantly disappeared without a trace. His heart and eyes were filled with only the person beside him. He tightened his grip on her hand and quickly loosened it. His fingertips gently rubbed the back of her hand. Then he straightened his body. Everyone was shocked. Wasn't he full of anger just a moment ago? Why did he suddenly become a different person after hearing Shangguan Yu's words? What did Shangguan Yu say? However, there was one thing that they were able to see. Rongxiu's happiness and anger were closely related to the woman in front of them. Everyone became even more fearful in their hearts. Chu Liyue coughed softly and composed herself. The heavenly square cauldron is indeed with me. However, unlike what you've guessed, I didn't get it from the northern region of the primeval age. In fact, it has recognized me as its master since a few years ago. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1485. It recognized her as its master? Hearing these words, almost everyone present lost their composure. What did you say? The heavenly square cauldron has recognized you? A man who looked to be in his 30s couldn't help but blurt out. Chu Liyue nodded. Doesn't the heavenly square cauldron recognize its master every time it appears? Under normal circumstances, treasures like the heavenly square cauldron would find their own owners. If one could gain its recognition, he or she would naturally become its master. If not, no matter how hard one tried, it would be in vain. Everyone was speechless. They were so focused on finding the heavenly square cauldron that they had forgotten about this. Recognized its master. It had recognized its master. Why were they still working so hard? Wait, you said that you obtained the heavenly square cauldron a few years ago. Do you have any evidence? Another person asked suspiciously. Who knows if you found this treasure in the mysterious canyon? Chu Liyue laughed. Why would I lie about this? To be honest, the heavenly square cauldron is the main reason why I can contract with 2 divine beasts. If you don't believe me, I can't do anything about it. Everyone was stunned. They almost forgot that Shangguan Yu did contract with 2 divine beasts. One was a crimson gold heavenly phoenix, and the other was a 3-eyed legendary eagle. Moreover, they were the eagle lords. At first, they found it strange as well. These two divine beasts shouldn't contract with the same person at the same time. If she had the heavenly square cauldron, it would make sense. It was a sacred artifact after all. Then, many people looked at each other and didn't know where to start. At this moment, Jean D finally calmed down and asked while panting, "Since the heavenly square cauldron has been with you for a long time, you must have known from the beginning that the news about the eldritch northern region was fake." Everyone's hearts trembled. Chu Lua nodded calmly. That's right. Even the elders of the academy couldn't sit still after hearing her words. This girl knew it all along? So at that time, I planned to go with everyone from the academy to see what was going on. At this point, there was no need to hide many things anymore. Chu Luiwed decided to lay his cards on the table. It's a pity that I fell sick at the last minute and stayed in the academy. I couldn't go with them. Fortunately, something happened in the northern region of the Untainted Land, so I had a second chance to go there. And that time I did go. The elders who traveled with me in the academy can attest to this. Elder Huafeng quickly nodded. Not bad, not bad. At that time, I didn't agree, but this girl was very insistent, so I took her with me. At that time, he only thought that she was young and impetuous and curious. Who would have thought that there were so many twists and turns in her story? Chu Luiwei smiled gratefully at Elder Huafeng. Elder Huafeng shook his head and quickly turned his head away, grabbing the armrest beside him. This was too similar. He rubbed the space between his eyebrows and kept reminding himself. Two people. There were two of them. Chu Luiwei didn't notice the conflict in Elder Huafeng's heart. She looked at the crowd with an open mind. At that time, I wanted to go to the northern region of the Untainted Land and investigate before making a decision. However, I didn't expect what happened after that. The man in his 30s who couldn't hold back his impulse to speak at the beginning couldn't help but shout. You didn't expect it? Do you think you can send us away so easily with just a few words? Shang Guanyu, do you know that if you had said so earlier, so many people wouldn't have died? Chu Yuyue's expression was cold, and her gaze was like a knife. Do you mean that you want me to be responsible for the deaths of those people? At the very least, you have to bear half of the responsibility, right? The other party was obviously more agitated. If you had said so earlier, we wouldn't have ended up like this. Chu Luiwei suddenly laughed. Forgive me for not agreeing with your words. Her gaze swept across everyone like a sharp sword that had been tempered by ice. It pierced straight to the bottom of their hearts. You went to the northern region of the Untainted Land just to snatch the supreme treasure. This matter doesn't seem to have anything to do with me, right? What do their lives have to do with her? Besides, even if I had said so at that time, would you have believed me? Her clear and indifferent rhetorical question left those people speechless. They indeed wouldn't believe the words of an ordinary student of Lingxiao College. Moreover, it was related to the heavenly square cauldron, such a supreme treasure in the hands of a teenager. Just thinking about it made them feel that it was a fantasy. Why would anyone listen to her? Chu Luiwei tucked the stray hair on her cheek behind her ear, shrugged, and chuckled. Everyone should know the principle of alerting the enemy better than I do, right? Did they want her to put herself in danger for some irrelevant people? Even they wouldn't do that themselves. From the beginning to the end, the only people I wanted to save were the people of Lingxiao College. The lives of others have nothing to do with me. Her words were loud and clear. It sounded so resolute, but it was understandable. Everyone was speechless for a moment. Suddenly, someone spoke in a cold voice. You said that you have nothing to do with the Black Demon Cave, and that the Heavenly Square Cauldron had recognized you as its master a few years ago. How could it be so coincidental that among so many people, only you successfully entered the mysterious area in the canyon? Shang Guanyu, do you really not have any secrets that you can't tell others? Chu Luiwei looked in the direction of the voice. It was a man who looked about 40 years old. His face was ordinary, and his eyes were cold. Just as Chu Luiwei was about to speak, she suddenly heard loud laughter from the distant horizon. The laughter was as loud as thunder. She is a descendant of the Shangguan clan. Naturally, only she can enter my territory. This voice was vast and ethereal, but it was incomparably clear when it entered their ears. Everyone was shocked and turned to look in unison. Chu Yue's heart also skipped a beat. She looked in the direction of the voice. A tall and burly figure was rapidly approaching from the sky. He was dressed in a long black robe, and he walked 1,000 miles in a single step. Today I am here. I want to see who dares to bully her. Impressive pressure. Astonishing state of mind. Digression. Tomorrow, 12 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1486. A Venerable God Expert. Elder Bo Yin stood up abruptly and looked at the person who had just arrived. The other party's aura was tyrannical and oppressive. He was definitely an expert among experts. He turned his gaze and looked at Chu Luwei. Chu Lass, who is that? That man said descendant of the Shangwan family. Wasn't he referring to Shangwan Yu? Didn't they say that this girl was an outsider? How did she have such a powerful helper? Many people pricked up their ears. Chu Luwei looked at the middle-aged man who was striding over from the horizon. Her heart was strong and intense as it kept beating. Bang, 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 bang. Great, great ancestor, she muttered softly. Her eyes were filled with disbelief and unconcealable joy. Rongxiu sensed her emotional fluctuations. His gaze turned slightly and a hint of a smile flashed across his eyes. I didn't expect this person to come so quickly. In the blink of an eye, Taizu's figure was already in front of her. His robes fluttered in the wind. He walked step by step in front of Chu Luwei and looked at her with a smile. Chu Luwei looked at him in a daze. For a moment, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Taizu's figure and appearance hadn't changed much. It was just that the translucent soul in the past had now become a corporeal body. His brows and expression were so familiar and intimate. Taizu bent down slightly and looked straight at Chu Luwei. Why? It's only been a while since we last met. Don't you recognize me? Chu Luwei was still in a daze. Taizu, she really didn't expect that the person who appeared would be Taizu. Back in the northern region of the primordial desolate land, she vaguely guessed that Taizu should have been there. Later on, she also knew that it should be Taizu's tomb. There, she also thought that Taizu might be able to come back to life. But she never expected that it would actually be true. Furthermore, Taizu's strength seemed to be extremely powerful. Taizu looked at Chu Luwei, who was rarely at a loss, and could not help but laugh. He reached out his big hand and rubbed her head. Ha ha ha. Was this girl really that stupid? Wasn't she happy that Taizu was here? Everyone was shocked. Taizu, is this man a Taizu from Shangwan Yu? However, it seemed that he had never heard of an expert with the surname Shangwan in the Divine Ruins world. If there was no way they wouldn't know. Many people looked at each other, but it was obvious that they did not know much about this middle-aged man who had suddenly appeared. However, his appearance caused the crowd to feel a bit of fear. Not only did Shanghai Yu have the support of Lingxiao College and Yuntian Tower, but they also had a god-level master. Moreover, judging from his aura, he could practically crush most of the people present. If this person was really a Taizu from Shangwan Yu, then they were connected by blood and would definitely protect each other to the end. That would be even more troublesome. Taizu patted her head lightly again and said word by word, "Don't worry. With Taizu here today, no one will be able to bully you." Chu Luwei suddenly felt a lump in her throat as she looked at Taizu's kind and doting smile. She had always been tough and never admitted defeat. Even when she was surrounded by so many people and was being pressured step by step, she still did not show any signs of weakness. Because she knew that she could not. At a time like this, if she showed any signs of weakness, these people would become even more aggressive. Therefore, she had to be tough. However, at this moment, the great ancestor's faint words suddenly and easily pierced through her barrier. In an instant, she felt wronged, sad, longing, and happy. Countless complicated emotions surged in his heart. Taizu's heart clenched when he saw that her eyes were red. All right. It's all Taizu's fault. We came too late. Our Yuer has been wronged, right? He wanted to help Chu Luwei wipe the tears in her eyes, but he didn't know what to do. He was at a loss. He had been all-powerful for several years. In terms of fighting and killing, he was the best at it. However, his daughter was crying. He really didn't know what to do. Therefore, he could only stand there and worry. Chu Liwei couldn't help but laugh out loud. She reached out and tugged at his sleeve. Taizu, don't worry. I'm just too happy to see you. Taizu saw that she was smiling again. Her eyes were bright and bright. Only then did he feel relieved. Chu Liwei sized him up from head to toe. She was still a little confused. How did you come out? This question was tactful. In fact, Taizu was only a soul back then, and it wasn't complete. Chu Liwei had always thought that only by helping Taizu reconstruct his body and finding the remaining incomplete soul could she completely revive Taizu. But now, the great ancestor gently knocked on her forehead and smiled. Lass, have you forgotten that that place is our territory? Chu Liwei was stunned for a moment. Their territory? Was he talking about Taizu's graveyard? Suddenly, a white light flashed through her mind. If the great ancestor appeared like this, didn't it prove that his remaining soul was originally buried in the tomb, as well as... Her gaze immediately fell on Taizu's body. There were a few shallow scars on the great ancestor's face and hands. They seemed to be old injuries. If it was a reconstructed body, there naturally wouldn't be such scars. This was Taizu's original body? Could it be that what was sealed in the graveyard was Taizu's body from 1,000 years ago? As if seeing through her thoughts, Taizu blinked. Chu Liwei instantly understood and swallowed the words that were at the tip of her tongue. However, her heart was still surging with waves and couldn't calm down for a long time. Let's talk about these family matters in detail later. Taizu, I'll help you solve these small problems first, Taizu said with a smile, then turned around and looked at everyone present. Finally, his gaze fixed on the man in his 40s who had questioned Chu Liwei just now. The smile on his face faded a lot, and his gaze was like a knife that scraped across the man's body, as if he wanted to directly use a knife to kill the man. Sensing the faint pain in his body, the man was a little scared, and his eyes unconsciously avoided looking at Taizu. Taizu suddenly asked, "Just now, were you the one who forced our you?" His voice was no longer as gentle as when he spoke to Chu Liwei. It was as cold as frost. Every word seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 caddies as it came crashing down heavily. The man's heart trembled. From a moment this person appeared, he knew that this person was not to be trifled with. I was just asking about some things. I didn't mean to force her. Everyone is here and can testify for me." When Taizu heard this, the corners of his mouth twitched without a smile. "Oh, is that so?" Cold sweat broke out on the man's back. He had seen a lot of big scenes. If the other party wasn't too strong, he wouldn't be like this. Of course it's true. The reason why I asked that was to give her a chance to clear her name. Bang! Before he could finish his sentence, Taizu suddenly raised his hand. A bluish-black force suddenly flew out. The man's body was immediately sent flying, and then fell heavily to the ground. Taizu sneered. "Who do you think you are? How dare you interrogate you, Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1487. The surroundings instantly became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stupefied by this sudden scene. He attacked. He attacked just like that. Wasn't he too direct? This man was also from a first-rate family. Although he was a little desolate now and couldn't be compared to the Yuntian Tower and the Meteor Sect, he still had the reputation of a first-rate family. Everyone more or less gave him some face. Who knew that this man who suddenly appeared would actually start a fight without a word? The man who was beaten was obviously stunned. He coughed a few times and spat out a few broken teeth. They mixed with the dark red blood and looked very miserable. "Master!" When the few people who followed the man saw this scene, they hurriedly rushed over and helped him up. "Master, are you all right?" Yi Ling ran, couldn't wait to kick these blind people to death. Did he look like he was fine? But now, if these people didn't stand by the side to support him, he was afraid that he wouldn't even be able to stand properly. That attack, just now, came too suddenly and caught him off guard. And it was extremely strong. It was extremely ruthless. Half of his face was numb now. Every part of his body seemed to have been ruthlessly crushed by something. It was extremely painful. Every time he breathed, there was a piercing pain in his chest and abdomen. His bones were probably broken, and his internal organs were ruptured. He pointed at Taizu with a trembling hand. However, when he met that pair of cold and indifferent eyes, his heart couldn't help but tremble. He curled his finger and retracted it. However, the anger on his face was still obvious. You launched a sneak attack without a word. Isn't that too much? Taizu simply laughed out loud. What? Sneak attack? Of course it's a sneak attack. The man panted heavily. His face was red and white. Everyone was fine at first. You suddenly attacked. Naturally, it's considered a sneak attack. Sir, even if Shang Wanyu is your family and you want to protect him, you can't do this. You're really going too far. Taizu narrowed his eyes and snorted. When this sovereign made his move, everyone present clearly saw it. And I was standing right in front of you. You couldn't even see that. Are you blind? Yi Lingren never would have thought that not only was this person's strength formidable, his skin was also as thick as a city wall. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his heart filled with hatred. Being beaten to such a state in front of so many people, he had completely lost all his face. There's so many people here. Everyone has been talking nicely since the beginning. No one dared to make a move. And you, that's your business. What does it have to do with me? Taizu interrupted him impatiently, then raised his eyebrows and looked around. His gaze was as cold as a knife. It's true that you didn't directly take action against Yuer, but which one of you didn't bully her? You are all from first-rate families and clans. No matter how you look at it, you are all people with reputations. But in the end, you actually joined hands to interrogate a teenage girl. Even if you don't feel ashamed, I feel ashamed for you. This sentence successfully caused the expressions of many people present to change. However, he couldn't say anything to refute. Taizu coldly glanced at Yi Lingren. If you don't have the strength, then don't come out and make a fuss. How shameful. Yi Lingren's chest tightened. His vision turned black, and he almost fainted on the ground. You, who are you? How dare you be so arrogant here? He said these words with a strong appearance, but a weak heart. No matter what the other party's identity was, his strength was obvious. If he made a move without saying anything again, Taizu sneered. You don't have the right to ask me this question. Yi Lingren swallowed a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, and his whole body trembled. Taizu didn't care. He turned his head and looked to the other side. Are you from the Golden Wing sect? Naturally, he was asking Jean D. Jean D's heart suddenly jumped when he was suddenly called out. He opened his mouth and felt a little weak. Yes, that's right. Just now, Yi Lingren was beaten up like this by this man. He didn't even have the strength to fight back. It was really terrifying. Now, this person was facing him again. It was impossible to say that he wasn't nervous. What do you want to do? Jean D clenched his fists. Taizu tilted his head and pondered for a moment. Then he turned around and asked Shu Luiyue, last time in the northern region of the primordial desolate land. This thing has been making things difficult for you, right? Although he was still asleep at that time, he could vaguely feel what had happened inside and outside the canyon. Therefore, he remembered Jean D, and he had a deep impression of him. Hearing Taizu's words, Jean D suddenly felt that something was wrong. Could it be that this person had been targeting him since the northern region of the primordial desolate land? Then it's him. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly, and then the corners of his mouth curved slightly. Senior Jean D has always been very concerned about my affairs. Jean D was shocked. Shang Wanyu, what nonsense are you talking about? Wasn't he deliberately making enemies for him? I'm not talking nonsense. Chu Luiyue looked innocent. From the Scarlet Cloud Sword to the Heavenly Square Cauldron, haven't you, or the Golden Wings sect, been very active in participating? Participating? I'm afraid you're just making trouble. Rongshio's thin lips curled up slightly as he glanced at her. This girl became bold again when she saw Taizu. She was getting more and more skilled at tricking people. I was just, come here. Jean D wanted to defend himself, but before he could say anything, he heard the man ask him to go over. He swallowed hard. If you have something to say, just say it. He wouldn't go over. Wouldn't that be courting death? Just now, when he attacked Yiling Ran, all the people from the Golden Wing sect added together were probably no match for him. Then why would he go up and look for trouble? Taizu's expression faded a little, and his voice also turned cold. I said to ask you to come over. Didn't you hear me? Every word was full of oppression, as if a heavy hammer had hit his heart. Jean D only felt uncomfortable. He gritted his teeth. Actually, everyone just doesn't want to cause any misunderstandings. Haven't the previous misunderstandings already been resolved? Taizu was impatient to listen to his nonsense. He suddenly raised his hand. His fingers clenched. Swish! Jean D only felt a strong force attack him. The next moment, his body flew forward uncontrollably. The biting, cold wind was like a knife, cutting across his face. Before he could react, his neck suddenly felt cold. Then he tightened his grip. Ugh! Jean D let out a short cry of pain, and then he couldn't say anything. Taizu clamped his neck with one hand and asked coldly, Do you think I'm as stupid as you? Jean D wanted to speak, but he couldn't spit out a word. His face quickly turned red, and the veins on his forehead bulged. Only his body was struggling desperately. Unfortunately, Taizu was as steady as a rock, and his efforts were in vain. Taizu held him with one hand and looked around at the same time. Today, all of you listen carefully. All the inheritances in the canyon in the northern part of the primitive world belong to the Shangguan clan. If anyone wants to compete with you, they will end up like him. Click. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1488. The crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard. The great ancestor casually threw Jean D's body, and she fell to the ground softly. His eyes were bulging, his face was bruised, and his head was tilted to one side in a strange posture. There were a few bloodstains on his neck, and the dark red blood seemed to be about to burst out from under his skin. His eyes were unfocused, his expression was stagnant, and his breath was gone. He was obviously dead. The air in the huge square suddenly seemed to freeze. Everyone was shocked on the spot. What happened just now? This man actually killed Jean D directly? The remaining people of the Golden Wing sect panicked when they saw this scene. Second Master, they wanted to rush over, but the corpse was right next to Taizu. They were full of fear and did not dare to approach, so they could only stand in the distance and watch anxiously and fearfully. One of them finally mustered up his courage and shouted, Do you know who this is? This is the only brother of our Golden Wing sect's sect master. Our sect master will not let today's matter go. What a coincidence! Taizu patted his hands lightly, as if he felt that his hands were stained with something dirty, and said with a faint smile, It just so happens that I also feel that killing him alone is not enough. Everyone, listen to that. Was this something a human would say? Not only did he kill one, but he also felt that it was not enough. Could it be that he wanted to completely destroy the Golden Wing sect? As soon as these words came out, the faces of those followers turned pale as well. Taizu looked at them and smiled. Don't worry, I won't kill you. After all, someone has to go back and report the death. Moreover, he felt that he would lose face if he personally killed these people. Everyone, Chu Luiwe, was in awe of Taizu and silently gave him a thumbs up in his heart. Rongshou suddenly came over and lowered his voice. So your temperament is inherited from your clan. Ordinary people really couldn't learn this ability to anger people to death without paying for it. His voice was low and pleasant, and there was a hint of a smile in it. Mixed with the scorching hot breath, it scattered on her slender neck, causing her to feel numb. She turned around and glared at him angrily. But now that she saw Taizu, her heart was filled with joy. Even this glance was exceptionally bright and dazzling. Ripples of light rippled, shaking people's hearts. Rongshou glanced at her delicate red earlobes and chuckled. I like it very much. After he finished speaking, he was satisfied to see a touch of red spread to his porcelain-like cheeks. Only then did the man step back in satisfaction. His face was upright, and his eyes were sharp. He was like a gentleman, incomparably handsome. It was as if he hadn't said those words. Chu Lui snorted. With Taizu around, let's see if he can still be impudent. She retracted her gaze and glanced at Jindi's corpse. The Golden Wing sect had gone too far. During this period of time, they had provoked her quite a few times. However, she didn't expect that before she could counterattack, Taizu would make a move. Moreover, it was so simple and crude. Needless to say, awesome. Looks like you're really brave and insightful. You've made up your mind to completely break off relations with the Golden Wing sect? Suddenly, a voice came from the crowd. The one who spoke was the man in his 30s who had questioned Chu Lui before. Compared to the other old foxes on the scene, he seemed to be a lot more impulsive. Could it be ignorant and fearless? At this time, he was frowning, and there was a bit of cold ridicule in his eyes. Obviously, he didn't think that Taizu alone could provoke the entire Golden Wing sect. Taizu glanced at him and suddenly laughed. You should ask the Golden Wing sect about this. Their ancestors didn't dare to fall out with me. But when it came to them, they were very happy. Digression. This was a February that couldn't sleep until 3 o'clock. 6 o'clock, mobile users. Please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1489. The surrounding crowd fell silent. There was too much information in this sentence, and ordinary people couldn't react in time. Even Chu Lui was shocked and looked at Taizu in surprise. From what Taizu said, he had interacted with the people of the Golden Wing sect in the past, and the other party was very respectful and careful of him. Was it true? To be able to make the ancestors of the Golden Wing sect so afraid, how strong was Taizu back then? Her heart was pounding, but when she thought of the 9 canyons and several dragon skeletons in the north of the primordial world, she felt that it might not be impossible. The people on the other side were obviously frightened by Taizu's words. The man who spoke was quite confident, but when he saw Taizu's reaction, he immediately wavered. Who are you? There was no such person in the world of divine ruins, right? Even if he pushed it forward, there didn't seem to be anyone. The other party was indeed powerful. If he didn't have any background, he wouldn't dare to say this in front of so many people. Taizu put one hand behind his back and said calmly, My real name is Shangwan Jing. However, you might be more familiar with my other name, Mu Tianjing. Mu Tianjing. I think I've heard this name before. Someone in the crowd muttered softly. I think I've heard this name before, too. I just can't remember it at the moment. Mu Tianjing. Mu Tianjing. Many people frowned as they tried to recall. Chu Lui turned her head and glanced at Rongxiu. She had never heard of the name Taizu. She didn't know if Rongxiu knew anything about it. As if seeing through her thoughts, Rongxiu smiled and nodded. Chu Lui widened her eyes slightly, and then became even more curious. Taizu Mu Tianjing. Mu Zun, Yao Bin murmured. Suddenly, a white light flashed in his mind. He looked at Taizu in shock and bewilderment. You're Mu Zun? You're still alive? He asked this question very carefully and cautiously. Many people looked over curiously. Mu Zun, what did he mean? Wait, rumor had it that 1,000 years ago, an equipment refinement venerable had appeared out of nowhere in the Divine Ruins world. He was peerlessly powerful, and he had even challenged 7 equipment refinement venerables without losing. Could it be? Shuruer seemed to have suddenly thought of something. She widened her eyes in shock and looked at Taizu in disbelief. After a brief moment of silence, the crowd in the square burst into an uproar. So it was him. So it was him. In fact, they had more or less heard of this person, because this person's experience was simply too legendary. Back then, he did not have any background and had roamed the Divine Ruins world alone. Arrogant to the extreme. However, this person was truly capable. Weapon refining venerables were as rare as phoenix feathers and Chelan horns in the entire Divine Ruins. As for him, he only wanted to find these people. To put it nicely, it was called sparring. To put it bluntly, it was called killing. It was said that the 7 weapon crafting sovereigns were greatly affected by his repeated defeats. Some went into seclusion for 100 years and cultivated crazily. Some were full of admiration for him. They gave up their families and clans and said that they would follow him no matter what. The last one was the most miserable. Because of the blow, he directly became a monk. The reason was very simple. He realized that he had cultivated for 100 years, but he was not as good as the other party who had cultivated for 10 years. It was really a heavy blow. Moreover, at that time, these 7 matches were held consecutively within 3 months. It was almost a seamless match. After one match, the next one followed. That equipment refinement venerable was the 7th. He had thought that after the previous 6 matches, Mu Tianjing would definitely not be his match. He had never expected that he would lose so badly in the end. He couldn't think straight for a moment. From then on, he abandoned his cultivation and devoted himself to Buddhism. It was also because of this that those first-rate families and clans had formed a grudge with Mu Tianjing. Unfortunately, Mu Tianjing had already become famous at that time. There were many more people who wanted to ask him to help them refine equipment than there were people who wanted his life. Therefore, those people could only leave it unsettled in the end. Unexpectedly, not long after, Mu Tianjing suddenly disappeared. Many people tried their best to find him, but they still couldn't find any trace of him. Some people said that he was dead. Some people said that he had hidden his identity. In short, there were all kinds of guesses. With the passage of time, everyone gradually forgot about this matter. In 1,000 years, the world had changed. Things remained the same, but people had changed. If it weren't for this person's amazing achievements back then, no one would have remembered him now. Taizu stroked his beard. Why? Are you disappointed that I didn't die? No, we definitely didn't mean that. Yao Bin reacted immediately and immediately denied it. Back then, the ancestors of the Yao family have been taught by you and have always been grateful. It's just that they couldn't repay you and have always felt guilty. I never thought that I would be able to see you today. Yao Bin wiped the sweat off his forehead in fear and trepidation. What he said was true. The reason why he could remember Taizu's identity so quickly was indeed because the Yao family had interacted with Taizu before. Back then, Taizu had offended many families and clans, but his ability to refine equipment had helped more people. The Yao family was one of them. Taizu glanced at him, narrowed his eyes, and thought for a long time before saying, "Are you the descendant of Yao Qingxin?" Yao Bin hurriedly said, "Yes." Junior Yao Bin greets Mu Zun. As he spoke, he politely cupped his hands to Chu Luiyue and said apologetically, "Miss Shangwan, I'm really sorry for offending you before." Rong Xiu raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly and reminded him, "Yu is now the princess of the Yuntian Tower. Patriarch Yao. You could just call her princess." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1490. Taizu suddenly turned around, narrowed his eyes, and looked meaningfully at Rong Xiu. The two men looked at each other. For a moment, there seemed to be sparks. Come here." Chu Luiyue coughed softly and walked over. Taizu put a hand on her shoulder. "We are really a family. We don't like to use our real names when we are outside. Since it's a coincidence today, let me formally introduce her to everyone." He looked around, the corners of his lips raised, and his smile was proud. "This is my descendant, Shangwan Yu. She is also the most outstanding genius of my Shangwan family. She is the apple of my eye." Everyone heard it clearly. She was a member of a Shangwan family. Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. Taizu had been with her for a long time. He knew how Rong Xiu treated her, but he still wanted to do this. She didn't know that Taizu didn't say much in the past, because he was only an incomplete soul at that time. There wasn't much he could help with. Other than protecting her by her side, he couldn't think of anything else. But it was different now. His divine body had awakened, and he had basically recovered his previous memories and strength. Yu was no longer a lowly outsider. She was the bloodline that Shangwan Jing cared about the most. These people relied on their good backgrounds to criticize Yu and force her step by step. Their Yu was so good. How could they bully her at will? Taizu's voice was deep and powerful. From today onwards, if anyone wants to bully our Yuer, they have to ask for my permission first. Every word was sonorous and oppressive. Many people's hearts trembled. This Shangguan Jing wasn't an easy person to get along with, although he was alone, but he was a venerable weapon refiner. Moreover, he was an abnormal existence who had once defeated 7 weapon refining venerables in a row. In the current Divine Ruins world, this kind of person was simply someone that every family crazily fought to curry favor with. Who would dare to be rude to them? Chu Liuyue's heart warmed. Taizu was backing her up. She could clearly feel that the way the people around her looked at her was very different from before. Lingxiao College and Rongxiu had indeed been helping her. But when Taizu made a move, it was different. Whether it was Lingxiao College or Rongxiu, to a certain extent, she seemed to be dependent on them. But Taizu was her closest kin. In the Divine Ruins world, without background, you would always be inferior to others. But now, with Taizu here, she was no longer alone. With such a top-notch expert, he was her strongest backer. Now, what else do you want to continue interrogating Yuer? Taizu asked slowly. Many people's expressions changed. What was the point of asking? You've already acted in such a domineering manner. What else do you want others to say? They did not want to end up like Jean D. Yi Lingran quietly retreated, trying to hide his figure as much as possible. At this moment, he realized that the other party had already held back his strength when he attacked just now. Otherwise, he would have been beheaded by now. This Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Yu, these 2 people, were not to be trifled with. He must be crazy to rush to the front like that just now. Taizu glanced at him indifferently and then retracted his gaze. Killing a chicken to warn the monkeys was necessary, but he had to choose a good chicken. A low-level one would dirty his hands. After waiting for a moment, Taizu nodded in satisfaction. It seems that everyone has nothing else to ask. All the misunderstandings have been explained clearly. Then, from now on, apologize to our Yu one by one. He raised his chin. Yi Lingren's body stiffened. Let's start with you. Digression, a useless February. I feel that I can't handle it. What I lack today will be made up in the next few days. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1491. Everyone was stunned. They thought that the matter would be over, but they didn't expect this to happen. They didn't ask any more questions. They had already taken a step back and chosen a compromise. Why was Shangguan Jing still unwilling to let them go? It was inappropriate for them to join forces to deal with Shangguan Yu, but that was also for everyone to clear up the matter. They didn't intend to make an example of a child like her. Besides, these people here were of high status. One by one, they lined up to apologize to a little girl. What was going on? Although this little girl was now the princess consort of Yintian Tower and was also Shangguan Jing's favorite descendant, it was fine for them to apologize. How could they really do that? Shangguan Jing had already expected that they wouldn't agree. Hey, didn't you say that you would apologize to you or after the matter is investigated? Are you going back on your word now? Everyone looked at each other. It was just a casual remark. How could they take it seriously? It wasn't that Shangguan Jing didn't understand, but that he had made up his mind to help his baby save face. However, they really couldn't do that. What would happen if word got out? They didn't want to save face. After a moment of silence, Yao Bin took the initiative to step forward and speak. Senior Mu, Senior Shangguan, we were indeed in the wrong this time. And part of what happened just now was also related to me. Why don't I represent everyone and apologize to little Shangguan? Perhaps because he remembered Rongxiu's reminder just now, he didn't say the words Miss Shangguan completely. After saying this, Yao Bin's back was already covered in cold sweat. A breeze blew, and it was cold. This on one side was Yuntian Tower, and on the other side was Shangguan Jing. They couldn't afford to offend either of them. Shangguan Jing glanced at him indifferently. You. Before he could say anything, Chu Luiyue suddenly tugged at his sleeve gently. Taizu. Hearing this, Taizu hurriedly turned his head. His originally dignified and cold face suddenly had a cheerful smile. "What's wrong, you are?" The corners of everyone's mouth twitched when they saw how quickly his face changed. "You can have double standards, but this is too much." When he turned his head, he saw two completely different faces. Chu Luiyue blinked. "Taizu, I think Princess Yao's suggestion is pretty good." Yao Bin looked at Chu Luiyue gratefully, as if he had been granted amnesty. He wasn't doing this for himself, but mainly because he didn't want to make the situation too tense. If today's matter could be resolved peacefully, it would naturally be for the best. If Shanghai Yu was willing to step in and mediate between the two parties, it would save everyone a lot of trouble. Taizu narrowed his eyes. Do you really think so?" Chu Luiyue smiled. "That's right. In fact, Princess Yao was right. Everyone was here today to investigate some things. As for me, I might have caused a lot of misunderstandings in the past. It's not a bad idea to use this opportunity to make things clear to everyone." The Taizu's eyes were filled with pity. "But you've suffered too much this time." He would feel terrible if he didn't help her vent her anger. Yu had suffered a lot in the past. It wasn't easy for her to return to Tianling and take back everything that belonged to her. In the blink of an eye, she was surrounded and bullied by so many people in the world of God. If it were someone else, they might not be able to take it. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed. Her eyes reddened, but her smile was extremely bright. "Don't I have you?" There was also Rong Xiu in the academy. These people were actually on her side and had been helping her all this time. "Taizu, I'm very happy that you're back. I don't feel bad about anything else." Instead of wasting time arguing with these people, it was better to chat with Taizu. Taizu looked at her, his heart aching. But in the end, he gently stroked her hair. "Okay, I'll listen to you." Yi Lingran heaved a sigh of relief. His knees went weak, and he almost fell to the ground. The attendant beside him hurriedly supported him. Taizu glanced at him and sneered. He felt annoyed just by looking at this kind of thing. The tense hearts of the others also relaxed a lot. Fortunately, things didn't get to the worst point. Yao Bin took a deep breath, took a few steps forward, and bowed to Chu Luiyue with cupped fists. "Shang Wanyu, we believed dazzling I and made wild guesses. We misunderstood you and caused you a lot of trouble. We're really sorry. I, Yao Bin, would like to represent everyone here to solemnly say, I'm sorry." His tone was very sincere. On one hand, he felt that he had misunderstood Chu Luiyue. On the other hand, he wanted to repair his relationship with Shangguan Jing as much as possible. So at this time, he was showing his utmost sincerity. Others might feel embarrassed, but in Yao Bin's opinion, an apology wasn't worth anything. It would be best if Shangguan Jing could let this matter go. Even if it couldn't for the time being, it was good to have a good start. Chu Luiyue smiled and returned the greeting. "Princess Yao, you're too polite. These things were obviously planned by someone in the dark. What she really wanted to deal with was the mastermind, not this group of people who were used as tools." After hearing Chu Luiyue's reply, Yao Bin's heart finally relaxed a lot. Suddenly, Taizu, who was standing at the side, raised his eyebrows. "That's it." Yao Bin quivered and hurriedly looked at Taizu's expression. After all, he was the princess of Ziguan County and had been in the Divine Ruins world for many years. He still had a discerning eye. He immediately understood Taizu's meaning. "Oh, yes. Also, well, no matter what, we were in the wrong first this time. We're in the wrong. Just saying sorry is not enough to make up for the harm we've caused you." As he spoke, he took out a sandalwood box from the purple thumb ring on his hand. The box was only the size of a palm, but it was very exquisite and carefully carved. There was a faint layer of light around it. It was not an ordinary item. As he handed the sandalwood box to Chu Luiyue, he explained, "This is the Blood Cloud Spirit Ginseng that I just got a while ago. It's a small token of my appreciation." Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. Blood Cloud Spirit Ginseng. It was said that it could revive the dead and was very effective. It was also very gentle and did not have any side effects. This thing was extremely precious. Even a Medicine Wind Valley of Lingxiao College did not have it. If Jiang Juan had this thing just now, she might have been able to save half of her life. She looked at Taizu hesitantly. This, Princess Yao, you're too polite. Yao been pushed forward again. This is nothing. It's just a small thing. Hurry up and accept it. Otherwise, it means that you don't accept this apology. We won't feel at ease, right? Taizu nodded. It's their good intentions. Just accept it. Chu Luiwei reluctantly took it. I'm really sorry. Taizu raised his gaze and looked at the others who were watching. Suddenly, he smiled. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1492. A quarter of an hour later, Chu Luiwei touched his universe ring, which had been filled up a lot, and was satisfied. This feeling of receiving a gift for free, it couldn't be any better. Not only did he not need to return the gift, he didn't feel the slightest bit of burden. Seniors, you are so generous. Yue is really ashamed to accept it. Chu Luiwei sighed with emotion. Everyone gritted their teeth silently. Ashamed to accept it? Don't take it. But anyone with eyes could see that you were very happy when you were collecting them. Unfortunately, they couldn't say that. Using a gift to replace an apology was the most acceptable compromise at the moment. Seeing that Chu Luiwei was happy, Taizu's mood improved a lot, and he couldn't help but laugh. Yue, the people here today are all first-rate families and clans in the Divine Ruins world. What you have is nothing to them. Don't be so noisy all the time. Those who don't know will think that we are deliberately cheating them. Everyone vomited blood. Isn't this cheating them? Their families were rich, but the things they gave out were the treasures of the treasures. This was simply cutting off their flesh. But what could they do? Putting aside Shangwan Yu, Shangwan Jing had sharp eyes. He could tell whether the things given were good or bad, expensive or cheap with just a glance. At this time, who would dare to take the risk of offending him again and pass off shoddy goods as good ones? Therefore, no matter how much their hearts ached, they had to give away the treasures. So be it, as long as they could end today's matter. After a while, someone finally bid farewell and left. In any case, the doubts about Chu Luiwei had basically been explained or resolved today. There was no point in continuing to stay here. Among them, a portion of people, including Yao Bin, were still trying to curry favor with Taizu. If they could establish a relationship with a living weapon refining venerable, the benefits would be unimaginable. However, Taizu was obviously not interested in this and dismissed them with a few words. The only thing he cared about now was Chu Luiwei. How could he care about anything else? When Yao Bin and the others saw that their hopes were slim, they could only leave in disappointment. Shangwan Jing obviously hadn't completely calmed down today, so it was normal for him to ignore them. Perhaps it wouldn't be too late to think of a solution after some time. Soon, the crowd in the huge black and white square dispersed. The surroundings gradually became deserted, but it was also much quieter and more peaceful. Looking at the empty square, Chu Luiwei exhaled softly. It's finally over. He had experienced too many things in a single day. Previously, his mind had been in a tense state, so he didn't feel it. Now that he was suddenly free, a heavy sense of exhaustion swept over him. She was not a god, so of course she would be tired. Dealing with so many people at once, and all of them had extraordinary statuses, he naturally had to be more careful. All of this required a lot of mental energy and strength. Fortunately, everything was resolved smoothly. Furthermore, in the end, he even managed to make a huge profit. This made her a lot happier. Taizu, just as Chu Luiwei opened his mouth, a familiar voice came from behind him. Senior Shangwan. Chu Luiwei turned around. Elder Bo Yin. Everyone from the academy had gathered together, and Elder Bo Yin stood at the front. He smiled and cupped his hands, bowing to Taizu. I've heard a lot about you. I didn't expect to have the chance to meet you in this lifetime. It's really an honor. From the outside, Taizu looked to be in his 30s or 40s, younger than Elder Bo Yin and the others. However, his seniority was the highest among the people present, and even Elder Bo Yin had to call him senior cleanly. Taizu smiled. This venerable one has been asleep for too long. The world outside has changed. During this period of time, I have to thank everyone for taking care of you, Previously, he had stayed with Chu Luiwei in Lingxiao College for a period of time. He knew that these people were sincerely good to Chu Luiwei, so his attitude toward them was much better than when he faced those people just now. Seeing him like this, Elder Bo Yin and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Based on the situation just now, they thought that this venerable one would be difficult to get along with. You're too polite. Chu. Shanghai Yu is a student of our Lingxiao College, so we naturally have to protect her. Also, this time, we didn't protect her well and caused her to be wronged. Elder Bo Yin sighed. Taizu frowned slightly, and the unhappiness in his heart dissipated. His Yuer might not blame the academy, but he was different. Yuer was wronged, and he couldn't help but feel that Lingxiao College didn't do its duty. The reason why he didn't pursue the matter was because he knew that Lingxiao College was already doing its duty to an ordinary student. Moreover, Yuer's relationship with the academy had always been good, and he didn't want to cause trouble because of this. It was good that Elder Bo Yin was willing to take the initiative to admit it. The expression in his eyes softened a lot. This venerable one knows that this matter was planned by someone behind the scenes. Elder Bo Yin, you don't have to blame yourself. Oh, then do you know who that person is? Elder Bo Yin and the others were shocked. Taizu thought for a moment and shook his head. We only have some clues, but we haven't completely investigated it. Everyone was a little disappointed. It's good to have clues. As long as we investigate carefully, we will definitely be able to figure out what's going on. Elder Huafeng happily came out to smooth things over. Senior Shangguan, Bo Yin, since the matter is over, let's go back to the academy. Elder Wincy reminded from the side. It wasn't appropriate to stand here forever. Yes, let's go back first. Too many things have happened today, and you must be tired. When he said the two words, Elder Bo Yin paused for a moment, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. Chu Yue's heart skipped a beat. She roughly knew what Elder Bo Yin was thinking. Elder Bo Yin is right. Taizu, let's go back first. Chu Luiwei smiled. Taizu nodded and patted her head. A wonderful show came to an end. When everyone returned to the academy, they were still filled with emotions when they thought of everything that had happened today. Originally, Elder Bo Yin and the others wanted to ask Chu Luiwei something, but Taizu rejected them with the reason that she wanted to rest. Everyone could only give up and let Chu Luiwei go back to rest. Taizu naturally followed Chu Luiwei back to Mount Jiuheng. Rongxiu followed the two to the door. Just as he was about to enter, Taizu turned around and gave him a meaningful look. Rongxiu, the two of us have something to say. He was chasing him away. Ever since he became the son of Saint, Rongxiu had never been rejected like this. However, the noble holy son seemed to have expected this. He immediately stopped in his tracks and smiled. Then I won't disturb you, and if you have any instructions, just say it. With that, he really left. His gaze turned slightly, and his deep phoenix eyes paused on Chu Yue's face for a moment. Taizu snorted in his heart. It wasn't that easy to kidnap Yuer. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1493. Chu Luiwei followed Taizu into the house. The door closed. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly, and a faint smile flashed across his thin crimson lips. Previously, he had only vaguely guessed this person's identity, but now it seemed that he was more protecting Yuer. But this was also good. With Taizu around, she should be much more at ease. Rongxiu. Outside the barrier, Elder Wincy suddenly appeared and waved at him. Bo Yin is looking for you. Rongxiu turned back to look at the tightly shut door and nodded slightly. He took a step forward and left with Elder Wincy. Dongwang Bell Tower. In the main hall, when Rongxiu entered, he saw that the elders present today were all here. In addition, Mu Hongyu was also here. It seemed that she also wanted to ask about Yuer. Rongxiu's thoughts raced, but his expression remained unchanged. Elders, may I know why you've called me here? Elder Bo Yin looked at him and said lightly, Don't you know about your princess consort? Several pairs of eyes looked over. The atmosphere seemed to freeze for a moment. Rongshio's lips curled up slightly. I thought that you were planning to wait for you, to come over and ask her together. We want to, but Shangwan Jing won't let her go. Elder Huafeng pinched the space between his eyebrows. Weren't you chased out too? Rongshio paused and slowly said, That's right. You, and naturally has a lot to say to Taizu when they meet. We have a long time in the future, so we're not in a hurry. Everyone, how could he compete with Taizu? He was really hopeless. Sit down and talk. Elder Bo Yin raised his hand. There are some things that you should explain clearly first. It's the same. When that girl comes over later, we'll pick some things and ask in detail. Know yourself and your enemy, and you will never be defeated. It was only today that they realized that they knew nothing about that girl. Of course, the main reason they were in such a hurry was that they wanted to confirm something immediately. Rongshio gently nodded. All right, elders, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. After he said that, the people present didn't know what to say for a moment. After a moment of silence, Elder Wan Zheng nodded. Rongshio Shangguanyu, other than this name, do you have any other identities? As soon as these words came out, everyone's spirit instantly tensed up. Several pairs of eyes fell on Rongshio. Rongshio nodded. Yes. The atmosphere in the hall instantly changed. Really? Elder Bo Yin leaned forward and asked anxiously. What identity? Rongshio paused slightly. It's a long story. Speak slowly. Explain it bit by bit. The elders were obviously very concerned about this matter. Mu Hongyu, who was standing at the side, widened her eyes slightly. Her mind was filled with doubts. Ever since she was called over, she felt that something was wrong. The elders seemed to be unusually concerned about Lu Yu. Everyone here was of high status. It didn't seem appropriate for her to be here. Then I'll start from the beginning. If there's anything missing, Mu Hongyu, you can fill in the gaps later. Rongshio said calmly. Okay. Mu Hongyu was taken aback when her name was suddenly called. She instinctively nodded. The elders' gazes swept past Mu Hongyu. The reason why they called her over was because they could tell that her relationship with Shangguan Yu was not ordinary. Every bit of information they could get was important. Everyone quieted down and waited patiently. Rongshio pondered for a moment. Yuer has another name. Chu Luiwe. Jiuheng Mountain. Chu Luiwe and Taizu sat opposite each other. Taizu looked at her carefully and said with concern, Look at our Yuer. You're so tired that you've lost weight. Has it been very tiring recently? His words were heartwarming. Chu Luiwe's heart warmed as she shook her head. Thank you for your concern, Taizu. It's not tiring for you, Taizu's face was full of disapproval. Those people bullied you all the way to the entrance of Lingxiao College. How can you say it's not tiring? If it were someone else, I'm afraid that only someone as outstanding as our Yuer could deal with them. Courage, wisdom, and strength. None of them could be missing. Great ancestor. Actually, this time I got the Academy's help and invited them over. There have been a lot of rumors about me recently. That's why I wanted to solve all the problems in one go. Chu Liwei briefly explained the ins and outs of the matter to Taizu. Taizu heaved a long sigh when he heard the story. After a long while, he said, It's all Taizu's fault for coming too late. If he had come earlier, it would not have suffered so much. She was alone, but she still had to put in so much effort to deal with so many people. Which one of them was easy to deal with? Chu Liwei shook her head, her eyes shining. No, Taizu, your coming is the biggest surprise for me. You haven't told me what you are. Taizu knew that she had been wanting to ask this, so he didn't hide it. You guessed right. That place is indeed the tomb I prepared for myself. Chu Liwei was shocked. Prepare for herself? Back then, I left the Tianling dynasty and went to the Divine Ruins world. In the northern region of the primeval world, I accidentally obtained the inheritance of a certain expert and broke through to become a venerable artificer. At that time, I was frivolous. After breaking through, I chose to enter the world and challenge several venerables in a row without losing. Taizu's tone was very calm when he talked about these glorious deeds. His old eyes were calm and filled with vicissitudes of life, as if they could contain all things. Chu Luiwe was secretly shocked. What kind of strength was this? At that time, I enjoyed all the glory, so I naturally became more arrogant. Until Taizu paused. Until later, I met the Great Phoenix Dragon. The Great Phoenix Dragon? Chu Luiwe was suddenly stunned. I've heard some rumors before. It said that you fought with the Great Phoenix Dragon's Dragon Clan, but no one said that Taizu directly fought with the Great Phoenix Dragon. Taizu sneered. Those old things are very proud. If the world knows that they were defeated by me, wouldn't they lose all their face? That one sentence contained too much information. Chu Luiwe was shocked speechless. So the one who fought with Taizu back then was the Great Phoenix Dragon? Most importantly, the one who lost was the Great Phoenix Dragon? Before the battle, I knew that something was wrong, so I prepared a tomb in advance. Later on, it turned out that this decision was very correct. I used this method to protect my divine body. Taizu couldn't help but smile proudly. Actually, that rumor is half true. At that time, there were indeed 9 green, red, and white dragons that came surround me. But other than that, there was also a Great Phoenix Dragon. However, they hid the existence of the Great Phoenix Dragon. After a bitter battle, I simply chose to die with those 9 dragons and suppress them. I won't come out for 1,000 years. Only that Great Phoenix Dragon took advantage of the chaos to escape. Chu Liu's emotions churned when he heard this, and he couldn't help but ask, Taizu, why did they treat you like this? If they were also ancient divine beasts, how could they do such a thing of using numbers to bully others? Taizu coughed. That's nothing, it's just that. I was planning to use the bones of a Great Phoenix Dragon to refine artifacts, but they found out. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1494. Chu Luiwe was speechless. It seemed that Rong Xiu was right. Some things were really passed down from generation to generation. Chu Luiwe felt that she was already very good at causing trouble, but compared to her ancestor, she paled in comparison and wasn't even worth mentioning. Using the Great Phoenix Dragon skeleton to refine a weapon. What was Taizu thinking? As if embarrassed by Chu Liu's stare, Taizu waved his hand and explained. Actually, I didn't do it on purpose. At that time, I just thought that the skeleton was not bad and that it might belong to some divine beast, but I didn't expect it to belong to the Great Phoenix Dragon race. If I had known, I wouldn't have done that. After all, the Great Phoenix Dragon race was one of the 2 great ancient divine beasts. No matter how arrogant he was, he shouldn't have courted death like that. Chu Luiwe glanced at him faintly. Taizu looked away guiltily. Actually, it's the skeleton you obtained in the Tianling God realm back then. The corner of Chu Liu's eyes twitched. You'd rather fight to the death with them than return it? After all, it was the skeleton of their race. This didn't seem too appropriate. Especially now that she had contracted Dumpling and Zichun, she more or less understood these things. These divine beast races valued the skeletons of their own race very much, and had never allowed them to wander outside. Taizu was like that. No way. Actually, when I found out that it was the skeleton of the Great Phoenix Dragon race, I wanted to return it, but they didn't listen and wanted to take my life no matter what. What could I do? I could only fight them head-on. Chu Liuwe felt a headache coming on. At that time, there was really no other way. After thinking about it, I divided my soul into 3 parts. One part was hidden in the Jade Pendant, one part was hidden in the Half-God realm, and secretly sent it back to the Tianling God realm. The last part was left in the divine body to fight with them. At that time, he didn't know if he could survive, so he could only choose this method. That was why his soul was scattered and his god domain was incomplete. Chu Luiwe heaved a heartfelt sigh. Taizu, your luck is truly extraordinary. He was actually able to survive in such a situation. The most important thing was that he could gather his soul, awaken his god body, and come back to life. This was truly heaven-defying. Taizu sighed. Actually, this is all thanks to you. If you hadn't entered the Tianling God realm, brought my soul to the divine ruins world, found that Jade Pendant, and arrived at the northern region of the primordial world. Even if I slept for another 10,000 years, it would be meaningless. They were connected by blood, and it was only by relying on the power of this bloodline that he finally woke up. At that time, he had no choice but to risk his life and gamble with his life. Fortunately, after 1,000 years, this bet was finally won. Chu Luiyue smiled. I've always been very lucky. In any case, it was great that Taizu was able to come back to life. Taizu smiled and nodded. Our Yuer is naturally the best. Don't worry, with Taizu around in the future, no one will dare to bully you. Chu Luiyue nodded seriously, his heart calm and at ease. Oh right. Chu Luiyue suddenly thought of something, and hesitation appeared on his face. Taizu, is the grudge between you and the great phoenix dragon considered settled? Now that you're awake, do they know? Taizu's smile suddenly froze. Chu Luiyue's heart sank, and a sense of uneasiness surged. Huh? Taizu smiled awkwardly. Although the 9 dragons are dead, the dragon race has an extremely strong perception of corpses. Now that I've woken up, the great phoenix dragon race should know, right? By the way, you've hidden that skeleton well. No one found it, right? Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched. Boo. Maybe thousands of miles away. Divine Dragon Realm. Above the dark blue sea, a huge hemispherical golden barrier floated quietly, and its aura was shocking. Within the barrier, there were islands in picturesque disorder. The mountains on the island were continuous, and the trees were lush. Occasionally, dragons would fly across the sky, their scales flickering under the sunlight. Suddenly, a dragon's roar came from the island in the center. Roar. The sound shook the sky, and the aura was vast. For a moment, the dragons were in awe. They lowered their heads. Then, a purple-gold light suddenly flew from the island. It shot straight into the sky. It's been 1,000 years, and he's still alive. This time, they must not let him go. Lingxiao College. Dongwang Bell Tower. That's it. Elder Bo Yin frowned and asked. Rongxiu nodded and glanced at Mu Hongyu. Mu Hongyu immediately said, No, that's all. No, that's all I know, Yi Zichen replied. The room fell silent again. Hongyu, there's nothing for you to do here. Go back and rest first. Elder Bo Yin thought for a moment and said. Mu Hongyu knew that they still had something to say, so she immediately responded tactfully and turned to leave. After she left, the atmosphere in the room became even stranger. The few of them looked at Rongxiu. So, Shang Wanyu has nothing to do with you, Elder Hua Feng stared at him as if he wanted to see through him. But how do you explain that she can use the Xian formation left behind by the first team? Rongxiu lowered his eyes. I taught her that. Is it really such a coincidence? Elder Hua Feng was full of doubts. The room fell into silence for a moment. Elder Wan Zheng suddenly said, Since that's the case, I have an idea. Let Shang Wanyu test the Qingyun roll again. This time, all 4 rolls will be tested. Digression. I'm going out today and might not be able to return home until very late. So, I'll put it on tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1495. This method will work. Elder Bo Yin also expressed his agreement. Previously, Shanghai Yu had only tested the Celestial Physician list. Although they knew that she was talented in other aspects, they had never tested her before. It just so happens that she hasn't taken a test at the beginning of the month for a long time. This way, we can also see how strong she is now. A few months ago, when she first came to the academy, her strength in all aspects was still relatively average. But after this period of experience, her level had increased a lot, and it was time for her to take the test again. Rongxiu pondered for a moment and nodded. Okay. Jiuheng Mountain. When Chu Luiyue walked out of the room, she saw Elder Wensi waiting for her. Elder Wensi, why are you here? Chu Luiyue was a little surprised and immediately walked over. Elder Wensi glanced into the room. Chu Luiyue understood and smiled. Taizu is resting now. Are you looking for him? Elder Wensi quickly shook his head. No, no, I'm here for you. He waved at Chu Luiyue. Come out first. Chu Luiyue looked back hesitantly, then nodded in agreement. She opened the barrier and flew out. Elder Wincy, what's the matter? Elder Wincy rubbed his hands, feeling a little embarrassed. Actually, it's nothing important. We all feel that you have improved a lot during this period of time. If it's convenient for you, can you go and take the test of the Qinyan roll? Chu Luiyue was stunned. Don't misunderstand. We just want to see what level you have reached now. Also, it can let the other students in the academy follow your example and work harder. Elder Wincy quickly explained. Chu Luiyue stared at him for a while, and her mind turned quickly. She thought that she probably knew what Elder Wincy wanted to do with this trip. After a pause, she nodded with a smile. Okay, then let's go now. Now! Elder Wincy was a little surprised. He looked inside again. Then Senior Shangwan. It's just a ranking test. It's not a big deal. The Taizu had come from afar and was a little tired. It was a good opportunity for him to rest. It just so happens that I also want to see what rank I can get on the list. Only then did Elder when she relaxed. Then, come with me. When Chu Luiyue arrived at Qingming Plaza, he saw that Elder Bo Yin and the rest were already there. Rong Xiu, who had been called over earlier, was also present. Perhaps it was because they had already specifically instructed that there were no extra people here. Chu Luiyue stepped forward with a calm expression and saluted the elders. Elder Bo Yin laughed. Last, you're here. Did I disturb you? And Senior Shangwan? Chu Luiyue smiled and shook his head. No, Taizu is resting. That's good, that's good. Elder Bo Yin nodded his head and immediately explained. Actually, this matter isn't that urgent. After all, you've just experienced a lot. Chu Luiyue blinked. There's nothing troublesome about the ranking test. Also, I'm a little curious, so I came. Seeing that Chu Luiyue's attitude was so upright and magnanimous, the elders were a little hesitant. Were they really wrong? Then let's not talk nonsense. Let's start. Elder Bo Yin thought for a while. Now that you're already at the middle stage of the 9th level, it's your biggest improvement. Why don't you try the ranking first? First? Chu Luiyue's sharp senses caught this word. She thought about it and immediately understood. So there was more than one ranking test. She smiled and walked to the front of the warrior ranking board without hesitation. The few elders turned their gazes over. Although their expressions were calm, the surging waves in their eyes showed that they were not so calm in their hearts. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and placed it on the black stone wall. Her hand seemed especially slender and white against the dark and deep stone wall. The two extreme colors intertwined and seemed to be fixed into a painting. Chu Luiyue held her breath. The few elders couldn't help but feel nervous. Suddenly, Chu Luiyue felt a gaze on her. She turned her head and looked at Rong Xiu. His phoenix eyes were deep and unfathomable. With just a glance, it was as if one would be drawn into it, forgetting everything and choosing to sink into it. It's just a test. Don't be nervous. Just do your best. A light smile flashed across Rong Xiu's lips as he asked gently. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and she nodded. Then, she retracted her gaze and looked at the stone wall in front of her. In the next moment, she activated the force in her body, and it surged out. Buzz! With a buzzing sound, the green cloud ranking appeared. On the black stone wall, countless streaks of light flickered and quickly condensed into names. The warrior ranking appeared. Almost at the same time, the dark area at the very top that had been deliberately covered up suddenly loosened. Crack! This movement was extremely small, as if something was trying to break out from inside. But from the outside, no abnormality could be seen. Therefore, Elder Bo Yin and the others did not notice this small movement. However, Chu Luiyue's palm was on the green cloud ranking. She could immediately detect any small change on it. She almost subconsciously wanted to raise her head to take a look. But this impulse only flashed past her heart. She remained calm and collected, concealing these emotions. Force continued to surge out. Crack, crack. The sound became more frequent, and it seemed to be louder than before. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to be beating violently along with this sound. The elders looked at each other and saw the confusion and suspicion in each other's eyes. It's been a while. Why hasn't Shangwan Yu's name appeared on it? Middle stage, ninth stage was not considered high among the students of Lingxiao College. After all, the standard for their admission was to be a ninth stage warrior. An ordinary ninth stage warrior might not even be able to be the last in the ranking. But Shangwan Yu was different. Her combat power was obviously much stronger than cultivators of the same level. As long as she tested with all her strength, she would definitely be on the ranking. But now, why was there no movement? Elder Wan Zheng looked at the top and frowned. There was once a name that shone brightly there. But now, only darkness was left. If the other elders followed his gaze and looked over, their expressions were different and their gazes were complicated. Only Rong Xiu looked indifferent and calm. It was as if he was not worried at all. Crack, crack, crack. Chu Luiwei could clearly feel that something was trying to break out from the seal, and she was extremely familiar with that power. Her heart seemed to be tightly clenched by something. If this continued, she was afraid that, boom, a loud sound suddenly came from afar. This sound was deafening, and everyone was shocked to the point that they immediately turned around. Chu Luiwei was no exception. In the next moment, she suddenly widened her eyes in shock. Something happened on Thousand Wine Mountain. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1496. The person who shouted was Elder Bo Yin. He quickly flew into the air and looked in the direction of Thousand Wine Mountain with a shocked expression. The other elders also reacted immediately and followed one after another. It was no wonder that they had such a big reaction. Something unusual had really happened at Thousand Wine Mountain. Above the sky, layers of dark clouds rolled over and finally gathered above Thousand Wine Mountain, covering the sky and the sun. The wind whistled and thunder rumbled, and that loud sound was the sound of thunder coming from the clouds. It was so powerful that it shook one's heart. Chu Lua looked at this scene and couldn't help but frown slightly. What's going on? Every mountain peak in the academy had been specially set up with enchantments, and Thousand Wine Mountains was especially special. Ever since Chu Luiwei caused trouble there, Elder Bo Yin and the others had specially strengthened the barrier outside the mountain. Compared to the other mountains, Thousand Wine Mountain's barrier was definitely top-notch. As a result, any movement on the Thousand Wine Mountain would be blocked by the barrier. From the outside, no one could detect any problems at all. Otherwise, when Chu Luiwei transferred the Dragon Abyss Sword Soul to Scarlet Heaven Sword at Thousand Wine Mountain, it would have already spread in the academy and caused an uproar. Yet now, the natural abnormal sign had actually managed to bypass the spirit formation. This scale and aura was much stronger than what she had seen in the past. Countless thoughts flashed through Chu Luiwei's mind, but she couldn't figure out a precise possibility. What's going on? This shocking commotion quickly attracted the attention of the entire academy. Countless figures flew out from the various mountains. Everyone looked in the direction of the terrifying commotion. What's going on? Why is there such a big commotion? Could it be that someone is about to break through? Look at that direction. It seems to be Thousand Wine Mountain. Could it be that an elder is refining a weapon? Refining weapons shouldn't be like this. Because they were worried that refining weapons would disturb everyone, the elders set up layers of barriers on the mountain over there. Under normal circumstances, this kind of situation wouldn't happen. I really don't know what's going on this time. But that's really the location of Thousand Wine Mountain, right? Did something happen to Mount Thousand Wine again? Everyone was talking about it. Not long ago, when the Thousand Wine Mountain was forcefully closed, they felt that something was wrong. Who would have thought that there would be such a huge commotion today? Elder Bo Yin stared at Thousand Wine Mountain with a heavy gaze. Why did this happen all of a sudden? They had checked it several times before, and there was no problem. Calculating the time, it shouldn't be now. His expression was cold and stern as he spoke in a deep voice. Wensi immediately summoned the academy's elders and lead the students to gather at Qingming Plaza. Yes, Hua Feng, Wan Zheng, come with me. The two elders were clearly aware of the seriousness of the matter and nodded in silence. Elder Bo Yin took a step forward and turned back to take a look. Rongxiao, protect her. Rongxiao nodded. Elders, be careful. Elder Bo Yin and the others headed straight for Thousand Wine Mountain. The entire academy was in chaos. Chu Luiyue put down his hand. The light on the warrior ranking quickly dissipated and returned to calmness. That frightening cracking sound no longer appeared. However, that familiar feeling lingered in her heart and could not be erased. Chu Luiyue stared at the black stone wall and finally looked up. The name that was covered was still dark, and his appearance could not be seen. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips and felt complicated. A large, dry, and warm hand suddenly reached over and held hers. Chu Luiyue turned around. What are you thinking about? Rongxiao asked. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. She could tell that Rongxiao did not want the elders to know her identity. Thousand Wine Mountain is related to you? Her voice was very low, as if it was about to dissipate with the wind. Rongxiao shook his head and intertwined his fingers with hers. I don't know either. He did have a way to hide it from everyone, but before he could use it, something happened at Thousand Wine Mountain. He raised his gaze slightly and looked at the pressure and momentum that were still increasing. He quickly frowned. Then, he held Chu Luiyue's hand tightly and said in a low voice, Don't worry, I'm here. Chu Luiyue was stunned, and then a white light flashed through her mind. Wait, could it be that the incident at Thousand Wine Mountain had something to do with her? To a large extent, Dumpling was able to break through to the crimson gold Heavenly Phoenix realm because of the spring at Thousand Wine Mountain. She was originally a little worried, but after Dumpling broke through, Thousand Wine Mountain was calm, as usual. Everything was as usual, so she did not take this matter to heart. Now that she saw the abnormality at Thousand Wine Mountain, she suddenly remembered this. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind. Thousand Wine Mountain had a special status in Lingxiao College. Although the students often went there to play, they did not dare to act rashly. This was also one of the reasons why the elders let them go up without worry. However, after she came, she caused a ruckus there twice. It was obvious that the elders of the college were accumulating Tianlei in the spring. Although she still didn't know what it was used for, the elders obviously wouldn't waste their time on it. And most of those Tianlei had been devoured by Dumpling. Didn't that mean she lifted her foot and was about to step forward? Rongxiao pulled her back, looked at her calmly, and shook his head gently. Wait first. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, but after hesitating for a moment, she finally chose to wait on the spot. If there really was any trouble, she could not absolve herself from the blame. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1497. More and more students and elders gathered at Qingming Square. Many of them had not realized what was going on and were still in a daze. However, many of them were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped when they saw Rongxiao and Chu Luiyue. They knew Rongxiao, but who was the girl next to him? She looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. Her clothes were simple, but it did not hide her beauty. Her appearance could topple a city, and her grace was outstanding as well. Just by standing there, she seemed to have gathered all the light. Everything around him seemed to have become much dimmer, except for Rongxiao. Seeing the two tightly clasped hands and their intimate posture, almost everyone felt as if they had been hit in the head with a stick and were dumbfounded. Since when did Rongxiao get so close to a girl? Moreover, why did this woman look so familiar? Chu Luiyue and the others had just returned, and the elders had been wondering about her identity, so they did not pay attention to the school. The incident in Fong State City had not spread, so no one knew about it. Mu Hongyu had just left the Dongwang Bell Tower when she was summoned by the elders. She immediately saw Rongxiao and Chu Luiyue standing in the middle. She had no choice. She stood out from the crowd and was too eye-catching. Chu Luiyue was pulled back from her thoughts by the crisp sound. She looked up and saw Mu Hongyu. She waved at her. The surrounding people subconsciously made way for her. Mu Hongyu walked over quickly without any hindrance. She had not seen Chu Liuyue's familiar face for a long time. Moreover, she had not had the chance to talk to her in Fong State City, so she could not help but feel a little emotional when she saw her now. She wanted to jump into Chu Liuyue's arms, but before she could do so, she felt a cold gaze sweep past her. Mu Hongyu coughed and stood in front of Chu Liyue politely. She did not dare to touch her. Liyu, why didn't you rest well before coming here? She hadn't even had the time to change her clothes yet. Chu Liyue smiled. Something happened here, so I came here. Mu Hongyu thought she was talking about the loud sound just now, so she nodded and looked at Wang Jushan. Us too. The elders asked us to come here quickly. I don't know what happened. She had not been in the school for long, so she was naturally not sure about the situation. Chu Liyue, let's wait here. The elders should be able to handle it. Mu Hongyu did not suspect and nodded. On the other side, Luo Shishir, Luo Yinlin, and the others also walked over. When he saw Chu Liyue, Luo Yinlin's face darkened. Unlike the others, he had already heard about what happened outside from Luo Yinming and the others. Naturally, he knew that the so-called Chu Yu's true identity was Shang Wanyu, the rumored princess of the Yuntian Tower. In other words, she was Rong Xiu's woman. After hearing all that, Luo Yinlin felt terrible. When he saw her in person, his feelings were even more complicated. His sister actually fell in love with a woman originally. He had already thought that if she really insisted, he would ask Chu Yu for her opinion. Fortunately, he did not do that. Otherwise, he would have lost all his face. Luo Yinlin was angry. However, when he thought about it carefully, it was his sister's unrequited love from the beginning to the end. Chu Yu had always been restrained and polite. There was nothing wrong with it. At the end of the day, he could not blame her. Luo Yinlin could only silently swallow his blood. His sister was going to snatch someone from Rong Xiu. Just thinking about it was exciting enough. He took a deep breath and glanced at Luo Shishir. Fortunately, Luo Shishir had basically regained her composure. This was the only thing that comforted him. On the other hand, Zhuosheng was being pulled by many people to ask what had happened in Fong State City and who the beautiful woman who had suddenly appeared was. Zhuosheng was stunned by the questions and scratched his head casually. Her? She's Chu Yu. Everyone was in an uproar. Chu Liyue could clearly feel that the gazes on her had become even more anxious. Fortunately, her psychological endurance had always been quite good, so she did not take these things to heart. Her eyes were fixed on Thousand Wine Mountain. If Rong Xiu had not held her back, she would have already rushed over. The surrounding people obviously did not realize the seriousness of the matter at Thousand Wine Mountain. Zhuosheng was annoyed after being asked so many questions, so he decided to tell them everything. Of course, he chose the exciting content to say. Everyone exclaimed in surprise as they listened, their hearts filled with shock. Almost everyone's attention was focused on Chu Liyue and Rong Xiu. I really didn't expect Chu Yu to be from Shang Wanyu. So she's the princess that senior brother Rong Xiu personally chose. No wonder senior brother Rong Xiu treats her so well. Didn't they say that she's an outsider? But her talent is too amazing, and that weapon refining venerable is actually her Taizu. With such a background, who dares to say that she's not worthy? Am I the only one who noticed that she broke through from the early stage of the 8th stage to the middle stage of the 9th stage in just a few months? Oh, I'm already numb. There was no other way. This person could casually pick out any one of them, and it would make others envious and jealous. After a few times, one would get used to it. Chu Liyue did not care about this at this moment. Dumpling, did you leave any evidence in the spring of Thousand Wine Mountain? She asked in her heart. Dumpling was stunned for a moment and looked hesitant. This? I don't think so. Chu Liyue's eyelids twitched. However, at this moment, a fluctuation suddenly spread out from the barrier outside the academy. At the same time, a deep and vast dragon's roar resounded throughout the world. Shangguanjing, get out here. Digression, 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1498. This furious roar carried the might of thunder as it reverberated between heaven and earth, clearly landing in the ears of everyone in the academy. Everyone's expression changed, and they immediately looked at Chu Luiwei in unison. Shangguan Jing, wasn't that the Taizu of Shangguan Yu? Was he the rumored extremely powerful weapon refining supremacy? Just who was it that was so daring to clamor outside the Ling Xiao Academy? Chu Luiwei's heart suddenly sank. That dragon's roar, everyone calmed down. A low shout that was full of vigor was heard. It was filled with pressure. This caused the originally restless Qingming Square to quickly quiet down. Chu Luiwei looked in the direction of the voice. It was Elder Danxing who spoke. They had not seen each other for a while. Elder Danxing looked much more haggard, and the hair at his temples was much whiter, as if it was covered in a layer of frost. He was about to fly towards the gate of the academy when he suddenly stopped and looked at Chu Luiwei. Chu, Shangguan Yu, go and invite Senior Shangguan to see what's going on. Chu Luiwei nodded. Yes. Elder Danxing looked at her with a complicated expression. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he left without saying a word. Chu Luiwei turned back and glanced at him. Although Elder Danxing and Jiang Zhuan severed their master-disciple relationship, he still sincerely taught her for several years. Now that she's gone, it's inevitable that he's sad. Rong Xiu said lightly. Don't mind it. Although Elder Danxing was biased in the past, he wouldn't go so far as to blame us for what happened. To say that it was resentment, it really couldn't be considered hatred. At most, she felt a little complicated. After all, a person's death was like a lamp going out. Chu Luiwei retracted her gaze. I know. If Elder Danxing really could not get over it, he would definitely come to her directly. Actually, what I'm worried about now is, Chu Luiwei pursed her lips. If he guessed correctly, the person who came today was very likely to be, I'll accompany you back to Juheng Mountain. Rong Xiu squeezed her hand. Chu Luiwei nodded and immediately set off with Rong Xiu. On the way there, the two of them bumped into Taizu, who happened to be coming out. Taizu. Chu Luiwei immediately went up to him. Are you all right? Taizu held her and looked her up and down. After confirming that she was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief. The uneasiness in Chu Luiwei's heart grew stronger, and he grabbed Taizu's sleeve tightly. Taizu, there seems to be the Great Void Phoenix Dragon Clan. Taizu's expression was grave as he enunciated each word. Their movements are quite fast. Chu Luiwei's heart seemed to be gripped by something. Taizu and the Great Void Phoenix Dragon Clan had a huge grudge. This time, not long after Taizu woke up, they directly chased him to Lingxiao College. It was obvious that they were serious. If he didn't handle it well, he was afraid, don't worry. This is Taizu's own business. It won't implicate you in Lingxiao College. Taizu patted Chu Luiwei's head gently and said in a gentle voice. Chu Luiwei frowned. You is a descendant of the Shangguan clan. Naturally, we should advance and retreat together with Taizu. Taizu was stunned when he heard that. Endless emotions seemed to surge in his eyes. In the end, thousands of words turned into one sentence. Good Yuer. The Shangguan clan had never been afraid of any danger. Don't worry. When I chose to wake up this time, I knew that I would have to face all of this. The great ancestor laughed out loud. Just wait in the college. Taizu will solve these problems. But Chu Luiwei wanted to go out with him, but on second thought, she might only be a burden if she went, so she swallowed the rest of her words. Then you must be careful. Taizu nodded and looked at Rong Xiu meaningfully. Rong Xiu nodded calmly. Taizu was relieved. His figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Chu Luiwei raised her gaze slightly and looked in the direction of the college's gate. She knew that at this moment, the great phoenix dragon was waiting for them outside. She didn't know if Taizu could successfully solve these problems this time. Chu Luiwei slowly clenched her fists. The reason why she was so worried was that Taizu and the Great Void Phoenix Dragon Clan had been accumulating hatred for a long time. On the other hand, back then, when she helped Zichun reconstruct his body, she used the two wing bones of the great Void Phoenix Dragon's corpse, although the remaining corpse had been sealed in the Heavenly Square Cauldron. But now that the great Void Phoenix Dragon clan was outside the college's barrier, she felt that this would be a big hidden danger. It was like a time bomb that would explode at any time. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. It was from the Thousand Wine Mountain. Chu Luiyue frowned and looked back. Dark clouds gathered in the sky above the Thousand Wine Mountain, forming a huge vortex. The sky was dark, and a storm swept through, as if it was going to swallow the Thousand Wine Mountain. Thunder rumbled from the clouds, and silver, snake-like, lightning swam everywhere. From time to time, it lit up half the sky, but it made everything seem even more treacherous and terrifying. A storm was coming. From here, one could vaguely see the figures of Elder Bo Yin and the others rushing towards the Thousand Wine Mountain. In a gloomy world, their figures actually seemed so small and insignificant. Chu Luiyue slowly clenched her fists. Thousand Wine Mountain. When Elder Bo Yin and the others arrived, they found that the barrier outside the mountain had already shattered. This was also one of the reasons why this commotion was clearly seen by everyone. But this was not the thing that worried the elders the most. Because the spring at the top of the mountain had stopped flowing. It was still daytime. The spring seems to be freezing. Elder Wan Zheng shouted in a deep voice, and there was a rare trace of panic in his eyes. How could this be? Elder Hua Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. There's so much Tianlei inside. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be at this time. Elder Bo Yin made a prompt decision. Immediately lead Tianlei into the spring. At this time, there was no time to think about why this would happen. The most important thing now was to solve the problem. Elder Wan Zheng and Elder Hua Feng nodded solemnly. Elder Bo Yin took the lead, and with a flash, he went straight for the spring. Boom! Suddenly, a bolt of heavenly lightning struck down. It fell in front of Elder Bo Yin. Sparks flew everywhere. The violent and terrifying energy seemed to want to tear everything apart. Elder Bo Yin was shocked and immediately set up a barrier in front of him. At the same time, he retreated. However, his chest was still hit by the aftershock. Bo Yin, how are you? Are you okay? The two elders immediately went forward and supported him. Elder Bo Yin shook his head, but his expression was very ugly. I'm fine. But this spring, at this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. They looked up and saw that it was Elder Ouyang. His expression was anxious as he quickly ran over. When he saw the frost at the edge of the spring, he could not help but be shocked and immediately cursed. Who the F*CK stole the Tianlei power from here? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1499. These words caused Elder Bo Yin and the others to be stunned on the spot. Ouyang, what did you say? Tianlei's power had been stolen? How is this possible? Elder Ouyang's figure flashed and flew to the side of the few of them. His expression was anxious and angry as he pointed at the spring. The Tianlei's power that had accumulated for several years inside. If it wasn't stolen, how could it suddenly erupt? He had been wandering around here every day, but he hadn't noticed it at all. Now that it had happened so suddenly, it would be difficult to deal with it. Then what should we do? Elder Hua Feng was at a loss. This Thousand Wine Mountain had a special status. Under normal circumstances, it was mainly guarded by Elder Ouyang and the other weapon refiners in the academy. The other elders would at most play a supporting role. Although they knew that the Thousand Wine Mountain was important and that the spring was very precious and could not be touched casually, most of them did not know the specific situation. Now that it had happened so suddenly, they could only be anxious, but they did not know what to do. Elder Ouyang rubbed his face in annoyance. What should we do? What should we do? The freezing of the spring proves that a lot of the Tianlei's power has been stolen. Even if all the weapon refiners in the academy were to refine weapons together and trigger the Tianlei, I'm afraid it would be too late. One had to know that in order to control this spring, They had been working diligently for several years, and had spent a lot of effort. Now that something had happened, how could they save it in time? The few of them realized the seriousness of the matter and fell silent with solemn expressions. At this moment, another figure was rapidly approaching them. They raised their heads and saw that it was Shang Yusin. He frowned and looked at them. The spring has started to freeze. Why are you all still here? Shang Yusin, why are you still in the academy? Elder Hua Feng asked in surprise. According to the previous pattern, he would not stay in the academy for more than a month. But this time, he had been back for a long time, and he had not left yet. Shang Yusin resisted the urge to roll his eyes. Hua Feng, what time is it now? You still have the mood to care about this? Actually, you just wanted to stay in the academy for a while longer and look for Chu Yu to study the Scarlet Heaven sword more. He didn't expect that a bunch of messy things had happened recently, so it had been delayed. Today, it was even worse. The boy had turned into a girl. Where is that senior Shangwan? Shang Yusin went straight to the point. He's a weapon-refining venerable. If he's willing to help, there might be some hope. Elder Ouyang slapped his head. How could I have forgotten about that? Although the matter was quite troublesome, they still had a ready-made big helper. However, when Elder Bo Yin and the others heard this, their expressions changed slightly. When they arrived, they also heard the dragon roar, as well as the low roar filled with threat and warning. It seems like some dragons have come to cause trouble for him. He shouldn't be in the academy now. Elder Bo Yin said solemnly. Shang Yusin and Elder Ouyang looked at each other. Obviously, they were still a little confused. Dragon race? What's going on? Dan Qing want to deal with it. We don't know what happened exactly, but that person suppressed 9 dragons in the graveyard of the northern region of the primordial desolate land. If I'm not wrong, he should have a lot of enmity with the Dragon Clan. Elder Bo Yin guessed with some uncertainty. If it wasn't for the situation at Thousand Wine Mountain, they would have followed him over. What's going on? Elder Ouyang crossed his hands. To be able to make the Dragon Clan chase after them with such fanfare, it definitely isn't a small matter. By the way, do you know which branch of the Dragon Clan it is? The few of them shook their heads. They didn't even go to take a look, so how would they know? The other party's pressure is extremely strong. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with. If that's the case, then I'm afraid. He won't be back for a while. Shang Yusin looked at the spring eye. The layer of frost had started to appear from the edge, and a quarter of it had already frozen. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before the spring I was completely frozen. At that time, I'm afraid, during this period of time, we have been carefully watching over it. There are no abnormalities with the spring eye. How did so much of the heavenly lightning's power get stolen out of nowhere? Elder Ouyang really couldn't understand. Under normal circumstances, when something like this happened, they would definitely be aware of it. Elder Bo Yin suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed. Hua Feng, when did Chu Yu, that red-tailed phoenix in Shangwan you break through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix? Elder Hua Feng pondered for a moment, then his eyes widened slightly. Could it be that you suspect, for the red-tailed phoenix to break through the shackles and become an ancient divine beast, it needs a lot of power? The Tianlei power accumulated in the spring eye is obviously the most suitable. But this doesn't mean that this matter has something to do with her, right? If it was really her red-tailed phoenix who did it, why didn't we notice it at all? The few of them fell silent. This was also what they were most puzzled about. Over the years, they had put in a lot of effort on Thousand Wine Mountain. They were basically clear about any fluctuations that occurred in the spring eye. However, they didn't know that the Tianlei power had been stolen. No matter what, call her over and ask her first. Elder Bo Yin instructed. Elder Hua Feng could only agree. Okay. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu had just returned to the Qingming Plaza when they saw Elder Hua Feng return. When he saw Elder Hua Feng heading straight for him, Chu Luiyue knew something was wrong. Elder Hua Feng waved at her. Boyan wants you to go. Chu Luiyue didn't ask any more questions. He took a deep breath and followed her. Seeing that Rong Xiu seemed to be planning to go with them, Elder Hua Feng originally wanted to stop them, but after thinking about it, he decided against it and quickly brought the two of them to the Thousand Wine Mountain. Only the people on the Qingming Square were left bewildered. In front of the Thousand Wine Mountain, Chu Luiyue glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw that there was a layer of frost on the mouth of the spring. From the serious looks on the elders' faces, she knew that they were in big trouble this time. Elder Bo Yan's gaze was sharp. He pointed at the spring and went straight to the point. "Girl, does this matter have anything to do with you?" At the same time, outside the academy's barrier, the two forces were in a stalemate. Inside the barrier was Shangwan Jing and a few elders of the academy. Outside the barrier was a tall man who looked to be in his 50s. Behind him stood a few young juniors. The man standing at the front was wearing a gray robe. His hair was white and his eyes were purplish gold. On his neck and hands, there were faint purplish gold scales the size of fingernails. Under the sunlight, they reflected a sparkling glow. He stared at Shangwan Jing coldly and sneered. "Shangwan Jing, you're lucky. Hand over the corpses of my clansmen, and I'll let you die in one piece." Digression. An excavator in his lower abdomen had shoveled away half a mountain. It had been in pain since dawn until now. He struggled to get up. 9 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1500. Hearing this, the expressions of the elders standing inside the barrier changed slightly. Who exactly was this person? He was so domineering. Shangwan Jing was a top-notch weapon refining supremacy in the Divine Ruins world. How could they be so rude? Elder Danqing had just arrived when he encountered this situation. He could not help but frown. Senior Shangwan. He flew to Shangwan Jing's side and quickly sized up the people outside the barrier. He was secretly shocked. From the looks of it, he was indeed from the Dragon Clan. However, why was the color of their scales a little off? He cupped his hands. "I'm Elder Danqing of Lingxiao College. May I know why you are here today?" However, the old man opposite him only glanced at him before quickly retracting his gaze. His gaze was cold and indifferent, as if he was looking at an ant. It was obvious that he did not take Elder Danqing seriously at all. Elder Danqing's heart surged with anger. Although his status in the academy was not as high as Elder Bo Yan's, it was definitely not low. Even the people from the first-rate aristocratic families would be polite when they saw him. He had never seen such an arrogant person. He knew that the dragon race had always been arrogant, but this was too much. "Everyone, you came rashly without informing us in advance. Moreover, you were so arrogant in front of Lingxiao College. Aren't you going a little overboard?" Elder Danqing's face darkened. The old man finally glanced at Elder Danqing again. A trace of impatience appeared on his indifferent face. "Who do you think you are? Are you worthy of questioning me here?" Oh. Elder Danqing was about to retort when Shangwan Jing stopped him. He smiled and said, "This is between us. Why implicate others?" When Elder Danqing heard this, he had a bad feeling. What kind of status did Shangwan Jing have? Previously, in Fangzhou City, there were so many people present, but he did not show a good expression. However, now that the person who came was so domineering, there was no anger on his face. In fact, his tone was rather polite. This, the other party's identity, was probably even more shocking than he had expected. "Shangwan Jing, stop talking nonsense. This time, even if you were hiding in Lingxiao College, it would be easy for me to take your life. If you have the guts, come out immediately and hide inside. Even if you don't feel cowardly, I feel ashamed for you." The person who came had a very bad temper and spoke very straightforwardly. His words were filled with anger. Shangwan Jing didn't seem to be angry. Instead, he laughed. "Mao Yao, after so many years, your tone is still as arrogant as ever. Leave his corpse intact." He had to have the ability to kill Shangwan Jing first. Upon hearing this name, Elder Danqing was momentarily stunned. "Mao Yao, why does this name sound so familiar?" Suddenly, his heart shook. Her eyes suddenly widened as she looked at the man outside the barrier. Mao Yao? Wasn't that the one who was rather famous in the Great Void Phoenix Dragon race? It was rumored that 1,000 years ago, there was a family that had obtained a great phoenix dragon egg by chance. They secretly brought the dragon egg back and wanted to force a contract with it. Unfortunately, before he could take action, he was caught by the great phoenix dragon. That time, the great phoenix dragon had only sent 3 people. Mao Yao was one of them. Although it was only a second-rate family, its strength was at its peak at that time. There were even 2 god venerables holding down the fort. It was even stronger than some of the declining first-rate families and clans. If they could contract with that great phoenix dragon egg, they might be able to reach a higher level. Unfortunately, they had lost this opportunity forever. Mao Yao and the other 2 only used a day and a night to slaughter their entire clan. After the news spread, the entire Divine Ruins world was shocked. As one of the 2 great ancient divine beasts, the great phoenix dragon had always been filled with mystery in everyone's impression. Many people might not have the chance to see the great phoenix dragon in their entire lives. As a result, the names of Mao Yao and the other 2 became the representatives of the great phoenix dragon race from then on. Elder Danxing had never thought that he would actually be able to see this legendary figure. He had never thought that it would be under such circumstances. Why did Mao Yao suddenly come here and want to kill Shangguan Jing? It seemed that there had been a long grudge between them. What was going on? Mao Yao sneered. You're extremely cunning and sinister. Back then, you deceived everyone and escaped a calamity. Today, you won't have that chance anymore. You would definitely not make the same mistake twice. Shangguan Jing spread his hands. I know you want that corpse, but it's not in my hands now. You're lying. Mao Yao did not believe his words at all. Back then, you spent so much effort to hide that corpse. If it's not in your hands, where is it? 1,000 years have passed. Shangguan Jing suddenly raised his voice. The world has changed. Things remain the same, but people have changed. Don't tell me you don't know what the primordial north region is like now. I've been in a deep sleep for 1,000 years. What happened? What did I lose? How did I control it? If you don't believe me, you can search me. As Shangguan Jing spoke, he lifted his foot and was about to walk out. Senior Shangguan, Elder Danxing hurriedly went forward and blocked his path. This is a serious matter. You must think twice. The great Void Phoenix Dragon clan had come aggressively. Who knew if they would attack Shangguan Jing the moment he went out? This person was still in Lingxiao College. How could anything happen to him? Mao Yao stared at Shangguan Jing as if he wanted to see something from his face. However, both of them were old foxes. One hid his thoughts deeper than the other. No one could guess who was the other. Shangguan Jing, if you really have a clear conscience, come out directly. I have my ways to check if that corpse is on you. If that thing is really not with you, we'll forget about today's matter. But if we find out anything, don't blame us for being rude. Mao Yao could not be bothered to talk nonsense. At this moment, he did not rush forward, break the barrier, and drag Shangguan Jing over on account of Lingxiao College. No one knew how furious he was when he found out that Shangguan Jing was still alive. The next moment, Shangguan Jing said straightforwardly, "All right." Everyone present was shocked. Elder Danxing wanted to stop him again. Senior Shangguan, they're here to look for me. It has nothing to do with Lingxiao College or you. You don't have to get involved in this. Shangguan Jing said with a smile. Besides, I have a clear conscience. What's there to be afraid of? As he spoke, he looked at the elder in charge of guarding the barrier. The 2 elders looked at each other and finally opened the barrier hesitantly. Shangguan Jing took a step forward. Both sides were in a stalemate. Shangguan Jing opened his arms. If you want to investigate, just do it. Mao Yao sneered. Let's see how long you could be stubborn. As he spoke, he closed his eyes and crossed his hands in front of him. Then a purple gold light bloomed in his palm. A piece of purple gold translucent scale flew into the air. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1501. The scale armor slowly flew around Shangguan Jing's body, as if it was checking something bit by bit. Shangguan Jing could feel a subtle force sweeping across his body, but his expression remained the same. He put one hand behind his back and raised his chin slightly, calm and composed. The corpse was indeed not with him now, so of course, nothing could be found. Mao Yao looked at the scale armor that did not have any reaction and gradually frowned. Could it be that it really was not there? But back then, Shangguan Jing had formed a grudge with them because of that corpse. How could he bear to give up just like that? Finally, the scale armor flew around Shangguan Jing, but it still did not find anything. Shangguan Jing laughed. How is it? Do you believe me now? Mao Yao's brows were still tightly knitted, and his face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost, cold to the bone. Who knows what method you used to hide it? This Shangguan Jing could even deceive them about his life and death. Hiding a corpse was not a small matter. The smile on Shangguan Jing's face faded a little. Mao Yao, what happened back then was indeed my fault, but I sincerely apologize to all of you. It was you who refused to forgive me and wanted to take my life no matter what. I had no choice but to choose to escape. As for me faking my death to deceive you, may I ask, who doesn't want to live well in this world? I don't think I deserve to die, so of course, I won't let you bully me to death. Moreover, I have been sleeping for 1,000 years. I don't know anything. It's no different from being dead. Even if it's to forgive me, it's enough. Today, you came to kill me without any reason. I tolerated it and even agreed to let you search me. This is enough to show my sincerity, right? What else do you want? His attitude had always been good before, but now he suddenly became tough, as if he had changed into a different person. The elders inside the barrier trembled with fear when they heard this. At this moment, he was still outside the barrier, only a short distance away from Mao Yao and the others. If they wanted to make a move, Shangguan Jing might not be able to escape successfully. At this moment, his words were sharp and even a little ear-piercing. The elders broke out in cold sweat for him. Mao Yao's expression changed as he stared at him for a long time. You really don't know? Shangguan Jing snorted. It's up to you to believe it or not. I've already said what I wanted to say. After saying this, he actually turned around and went back. Hey! The young men behind him were a little dissatisfied when they saw this. Just as they were about to say something, they were stopped by Mao Yao. In the territory of Lingxiao College, they had to give him some face. It was not appropriate to kill him directly. He had said that he did not want to kill Shangguan Jing by killing Shangguan Jing. He could kill him at any time, but it was more important to find his corpse. Is by luck. He frowned as countless guesses flashed through his mind. With a thought, the piece of scale flew back to him. However, just as the scale armor was about to fall back into his palm, it suddenly changed direction and flew towards the direction of the Spirit Firmament Academy. See, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. The scales drew a straight purple-gold line in the air. One of Shangguan Jing's feet had already stepped back into the boundary. His muscles tensed up when he heard the noise. A strong sense of danger welled up in his heart. Without thinking, he quickened his pace and entered, sealed the barrier. He let out a deep shout. The two elders who were in charge of guarding the barrier were shocked when they heard that. They instinctively attacked. However, they were fast, but the scale was even faster. In the blink of an eye, it had already flown in. Shangguan Jing immediately turned his head and saw a purple-gold flash past his eyes. The next moment, that thing brushed past his cheek and flew in a certain direction in the academy. It was terrifyingly fast, causing Shangguan Jing's face to feel a slight but clear cut. He looked in the direction that the thing was flying, and his heart skipped a beat. It was flying towards Thousand Wine Mountain. Senior Shangguan, this Elder Danqing, was also momentarily stunned. Strengthen the barrier of the academy. Don't let them in. As Shangguan Jing spoke, he had already disappeared from the spot. He chased after that piece of scale. Behind him, outside the barrier, Mao Yao had already reacted. He gritted his teeth. It's really inside. Shangguan Jing, just you wait. Thousand Wine Mountain. Facing Elder Bo Yan's questioning, Chu Yue's hands in her sleeves quietly tightened. Previously, it was not that the elders did not suspect her. They had even called her to Thousand Wine Mountain to question her carefully. She had always denied it. Because there was no evidence and there were basically no major problems, most of the matters were left unsettled in the end. But it was different this time. Even though she didn't know what secrets were hidden in the spring, she could roughly guess from the current situation that this matter wasn't simple. Although the red-tailed red phoenix has the bloodline of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix, it is almost 1 in 10,000 to successfully break through. As for yours, it completed its transformation in just a few months after entering the academy. Is this due to the power of Tianlei in the spring? Elder Boyan's question was very direct. Chu Yue's heart wavered. Ai Chi. Just as she spoke, a cold wind suddenly blew from behind. Danger! Her heart skipped a beat, and she immediately dodged to the side. At the same time, Rongxiu had already made his move. A golden barrier quickly appeared around Chu Luiyue. However, in the next moment, a crack appeared on the barrier. Chu Luiyue turned around in shock and saw a purple-gold translucent scale that was extremely sharp and embedded into the barrier set up by Rongxiu. The scale was half the size of an adult's palm. The edges were extremely thin and sharp. It was wrapped in a turbulent aura. Chu Luiyue was very familiar with that aura. This was the scale of the great phoenix dragon. Crack! The barrier shattered. The scale went straight for Chu Luiyue's Dantian. Digression, everyone, have a good rest. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1502. Chu Luiyue retreated without hesitation. However, that piece of scale followed her like a shadow and kept approaching her. Its speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to see its trace. She could only hear the sound of something breaking through the air. Black spatial cracks had already appeared in the sky. That was enough to show its power. Chu Luiyue took a step back and retreated again. At the same time, golden light surged on her body. The pure gold sacred armor quickly wrapped around her body. She was exquisite and slender. Although she was still wearing men's clothes, she did not deliberately hide her figure after her identity was exposed. She might have been a little immature in the past, yet now she had almost completely matured. Every single move she made was breathtaking and graceful. Swoosh! That piece of scale flew straight at her. Chu Luiyue bent her waist backward, and her body instantly bent into an unimaginable arc chi. The scale armor brushed past her body by an inch, just barely scraping by. Chu Luiyue could even feel the pain of her face being cut by this terrifying aura. The next moment, she straightened her body and half-turned her body. She raised her hand gently. A streak of pure gold flame suddenly gushed out from her palm. It quickly condensed into a wall of fire around her body. The raging fire burned fiercely, causing the surrounding temperature to rise instantly. Even the air seemed to be scorched. At the same time, a clear and bright cry spread far and wide between heaven and earth. Screech! A huge pure gold figure wrapped in raging fire appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. It was Dumpling. It was as if the vast pressure from a distant time and space almost caused the space to collapse. Dumpling's appearance finally made that piece of scale stop its movement. However, it still floated in the air quietly and refused to retreat. It seemed to be in a confrontation with Dumpling. Seeing this scene, everyone in the school was shocked. That is the legendary ancient divine beast, the pure gold heavenly phoenix? Those rumors are actually true. Shang Wanyu really made a contract with the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Ordinary people might not even have the chance to see a crimson gold heavenly phoenix in their lifetime, but Shang Wanyu is actually able to form a contract with it. It really makes me feel bored, even if I'm jealous. Her crimson gold celestial phoenix seems to have broken through from the previous crimson-tailed red phoenix. This kind of luck was truly unparalleled. Didn't Lu Yintong also have a red-tailed phoenix? However, it can't be compared to Shang Wanyu. What's with that scale? It appeared so suddenly and fiercely. Seeing this, the people of the academy began to discuss something in low voices. As for Elder Bo Yin and the others in the air, their eyes were filled with shock and they could not react for a while. The scale armor that had suddenly appeared was definitely not an ordinary item. Just now, it had easily broken through Rongshio's barrier. Scales of this color, could it be? Elder Bo Yin suddenly thought of something and sucked in a cold breath. Chu Yoyue's eyes were solemn as she stared at the scale armor in front of her. The crimson gold heavenly phoenix and the great phoenix dragon were two great ancient divine beasts. Since ancient times, these two great clans had always been in a hostile relationship, and the competition between them was very intense. Of course, the other clans were not even qualified to participate in this battle. Therefore, only after Dumpling's appearance did the arrogant scale armor of the great phoenix dragon finally stop for the time being. It was rather wary of Dumpling. As for Dumpling, Chu Liwen narrowed her eyes slightly. Even though she was standing behind Dumpling and could not see its current expression, their minds were connected, and they did not need any extra words or actions to know each other's state of mind. She had almost never seen Dumpling so cautious and careful. Its temperament was jumpy, and after breaking through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix, it was even more undisciplined and free. Its noble bloodline allowed it to easily crush all other magical beasts, except for the great phoenix dragon. Just as this side was in a deadlock, Shangwan Jing had already flashed back. At a glance, he saw the scale armor floating quietly in front of Chu Luiyue, and his heart sank. This thing was very sharp, and it actually found out that the corpse was now on Yue. This time, it would probably be very difficult to explain clearly. Roar. Just as everyone was in chaos, a deafening dragon roar suddenly came from above. Everyone was shocked and hurriedly raised their heads to look. In the sky not far away, a few figures were suspended in midair. They were unable to enter due to the Academy's barrier. However, they were able to clearly see the situation within the Academy just by standing there. Who was in charge of guarding the barrier today? They actually allowed them to go up. Elder Bo Yin reprimanded angrily. Outside the Ling Shao Academy, there was a huge enchantment. Under normal circumstances, everyone would enter from the side door. The top position was extremely sensitive, and no one was allowed to casually approach it. The defensive power of these places was basically the strongest. But now, Elder Hua Feng's heart suddenly jumped. Bo Yin, I'm afraid it's not that our people have neglected their duties, but they are too strong. The man in the lead seems to be the great phoenix dragon. Elder Bo Yin hadn't noticed it at first, but after his reminder, he hurriedly looked over. His heart sank as soon as he took a look at it. Purple gold scales, dragon roars. If it wasn't the great phoenix dragon, who could it be? Then, he suddenly turned around. That scale armor should also be the great phoenix dragon's? But why do they target Shangwan Yu? Right at this moment, Elder Danxing also hurried back. His face was a little pale. Bo Yin, our people couldn't stop them. The great phoenix dragon race was really too strong. Especially that one was the famous Mao Yao. Actually, many people didn't know this name. After all, it was something that happened 1,000 years ago. If they didn't specifically understand it, ordinary people wouldn't know so much. However, they understood the words Great Void Phoenix Dragon. For a moment, everyone in Qingming Square was shocked speechless. Great Phoenix Dragon. Hadn't it not appeared in the world for a long, long time? Why did it suddenly appear today? And the moment it appeared, it went straight for Lingxiao College. Thinking back to the series of events just now, it wasn't difficult to guess that the true target of the Great Phoenix Dragon this time was actually Shangwan Jing and Shangwan Yu. Didn't they just solve the problems of the various families in Fangzhou City? It hadn't even been a day, so how did they provoke this Great Phoenix Dragon again? Elder Bo Yan's mind raced as he frowned. This Great Phoenix Dragon appeared at the wrong time. He moved forward and cupped his hands at Mao Yao and the others. He was very polite. So it's Senior Mao Yao who came from afar. We hope you can forgive us for not welcoming you. Mao Yao only glanced at him indifferently before looking at Chu Luiyue. A cold smile crept up the corner of his mouth. That thing is on you? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1503. He didn't say what it was, but Chu Luiyue immediately understood. What else could make the great Phoenix Dragon clan spend so much effort to hunt it down other than that corpse? Chu Luiyue pursed her lips, but Mao Yao didn't seem interested in her answer. The reaction of that scale was enough to explain everything. He sized up Chu Luiyue and then looked at Shangwan Jing, who was not far away. His eyes became more and more sarcastic. So it's the same bloodline. Shangwan Jing, you're so generous to your descendants. You're actually willing to give away such a thing. Thinking about it carefully, this was actually normal. Who knew what kind of storm the great Phoenix Dragon's corpse would cause if it was spread out? Only one's own people were the most reliable. To think that he almost believed Shangwan Jing's absurd lie just now. From the beginning to the end, he had never thought of returning it. Shangwan Jing's expression was cold. He flew in front of Chu Luiyue and blocked her behind him. Mao Yao, if you have any problems, come at me. Don't involve others. Others? She's your descendant. How can she be considered as others? Moreover, the thing is with her. Mao Yao raised his hand and pointed at Chu Luiyue. The scales on the back of his hand shone with a sparkling light, sharp and cold. Ah, no wonder you're so bold. So you're relying on the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix's support. The moment he saw Dumpling, a trace of disgust flashed across Mao Yao's eyes. As an ancient divine beast, you actually made a contract with a despicable and lowly human. You're really degenerating. Boom! The flames on Dumpling's body suddenly rose. Her eyes were also filled with surging anger. It was fine to talk about it, but definitely not to slander her. Look at you. Do you really think of yourself as a dog of the human race? I really don't know what those old things in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan are doing. They actually allowed their clansmen to do such a thing. Even if you don't find it embarrassing, I feel ashamed for you. Magical beasts were hostile to humans, not to mention ancient divine beasts. Because of their noble bloodline, they were used to looking down on everyone. In addition to what had happened to Shangwan Jing, Mao Yao had a deep prejudice and hatred against the human race. At this moment, his words were naturally exceptionally unpleasant to the ears. Tuanzi let out a sharp cry from its throat. It flapped its wings as if it was about to rush out and have showdown with the other party. Dumpling. Chu Luiyue's voice was exceptionally cold and calm. Dumpling was filled with unwillingness, but she could only endure it. Chu Luiyue gently stroked its wings. Dumpling gradually calmed down. Then, Chu Luiyue stepped forward. You are? Shangwan Jing asked worriedly. Chu Luiyue chuckled. Rest assured, I merely have some things that I wish to say to this person. Seeing her calm eyes, Shangwan Jing was slightly relieved. After hesitating for a moment, he finally nodded. Chu Luiyue took another step forward and looked up at Mao Yao. I heard that Senior Mao Yao has an extremely high status in the Great Void Phoenix Dragon race. But I didn't know when you started to care about the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan as well. Dumpling has followed me for many years. From a 9-colored heavenly pheasant back then, she grew and broke through to become the current Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix. With just one sentence, you want to erase our many years of friendship. Isn't that too much? Mao Yao was shocked. His eyes swept back and forth between Dumpling and Chu Luiyue. This Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix actually broke through from a 9-colored heavenly pheasant. If that was the case, then others really had no right to stand out and criticize. His face tensed up. Even so, now that she's a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix, she naturally has to follow the rules of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Don't you know that after she breaks through, she should go to the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan to acknowledge her ancestors? Chu Luiyue froze and looked at Dumpling. She really didn't know about this. Dumpling lowered its head and rubbed against her shoulder gently. Actually, after its bloodline completely awakened, it already knew about this. But because Chu Lue had been in constant trouble, it didn't mention it. It originally wanted to find a chance to talk to her after all these messy things were over, but unexpectedly, Chu Yue's mind was connected to dumplings, so naturally, she immediately understood what Dumpling was thinking. Her heart warmed, and she immediately looked at Mao Yao with a chuckle. Senior Mao Yao, I wonder if you've heard of this saying, the eunuch is more anxious than the emperor. We're not in a hurry to do this, but as a great void phoenix dragon, you're very anxious. Mao Yao's expression changed. How dare you? Chu Yue's expression was indifferent. This is the first time you're seeing me. Perhaps you're not used to it. After a long time, you'll know that I'm used to being impudent and never like to bow down to others. Especially people who are already rude to me. They were here to kill her. Did she have to welcome them with a smile? She didn't treat herself as a human being. Mao Yao's face turned red with anger. This pair of grandfather and grandson were both masters who could infuriate people to death without paying for it. The old one was already like that, but the young one was even worse. Arrogant. Really arrogant. He took a deep breath and looked at Elder Bo Yin. You're the dean of Lingxiao College? Elder Bo Yin frowned. The dean is out traveling and is not here now. I'm Bo Yin, and I'm in charge of everything in Lingxiao College for the time being. Senior Mao Yao, is there any misunderstanding here? Why don't we all calm down and sit down and talk? Misunderstanding? Mao Yao sneered. You can ask the two of them what good things they've done. Elder Bo Yin felt a little uneasy. The great Void Phoenix Dragon race boasted of their noble status and rarely interfered in the affairs of the human race. This time, they actually charged over directly. Something must have really happened. On account of Lingxiao College, I'll give you a chance. Hand over the two of them immediately. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. Mao Yao's attitude was very firm. From the looks of it, if they didn't do as he said, he might really do anything. Elder Bo Yin looked at Shangguan Jing with a grave expression. Senior Shangguan, what's going on? Shangguan Jing frowned, as if he was thinking about how to deal with the situation in front of him. Actually, it's not a big deal. Chu Lue suddenly spoke. Everyone looked over, their hearts filled with sorrow. The great Void Phoenix Dragon race had already been forced to charge here. How is it not a big deal? Chu Lue tucked her loose strands of hair behind her ears and calmly said, It's fine. 1,000 years ago, Taizu accidentally obtained the corpse of a great Void Phoenix Dragon. Taizu originally planned to return it, but Senior Mao Yao said that he wanted to take his life no matter what. Helpless, Taizu could only choose to escape, and that corpse never had the chance to be returned. Until today, 1,000 years later, Taizu woke up and Senior Mao Yao and the others chased after them again. Elder Bo Yin trembled with fear when he heard that. Then why don't we make peace on account of the academy? Senior Shangguan, if you return that corpse, Senior Mao Yao will also let it go. How about that? Nothing. Chu Lue rejected this suggestion and said indifferently, I've already used the wing bones of that corpse. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1505. Originally, he thought that with the barriers separating them, he would still be somewhat safe. Who knew that Mao Yao would use such a method? Not only did he transform his real body into a piece of scale armor and barge in a Ling Xiao Academy, but he even wanted to attack Chu Lue without saying a word. How could Ling Xiao College not react? A huge and muscular figure appeared in midair. That dragon was covered in purplish gold dragon scales. Its claws were sharp, and its aura was shocking. His eyes were a deep black with a hint of purple, giving him a sense of mystery. It was cold, arrogant, and indifferent. Its speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Chu Lue. At the same time, it let out a low and oppressive dragon roar. Roar! In an instant, a terrifying force surged from all directions. The space around Chu Lue was instantly compressed. Her chest felt stuffy, and it seemed that the force in her body had become slow and stagnant. The next moment, an indescribably heavy force came crashing down. Chu Yoyue's figure flew out instantly. Be careful," Shangguan Jing exclaimed. Chu Liyue only felt a blur in front of her eyes, and her body retreated uncontrollably. However, this state did not last for long. A gentle and strong force quickly supported her waist, helping to remove that shocking force. Then, she fell into a broad and warm embrace. A familiar cold fragrance came, and it made her feel at ease. Chu Liyue looked back and saw Rong Xiu looking ahead coldly, and his murderous intent was overflowing. "Senior Mao Yao, think carefully before you attack. You is now my Yuntian Tower's princess consort. If you hurt or kill her, you will completely break with my Yuntian Tower." His voice was low and powerful, and every word was like thunder. The surroundings were silent for a moment. Obviously, no one expected Rong Xiu to be so decisive. He directly blocked the entire Yuntian Tower. A trace of astonishment flashed across the pair of dragon eyes. "Yuntian Tower? Princess?" After Mao Yao sensed that Shangguan Jing was still alive, he led his men to chase after him. He didn't have time to learn anything else. Therefore, he did not know that Chu Liyue had such an identity. The Yuntian Tower was a peak existence among the first-rate families in the Divine Ruins. Even someone as powerful as the Great Phoenix Dragon had to be wary of him. It would have been fine if she was just an ordinary person, but the key point was that this woman was actually a princess. This was going to be tricky. Mao Yao's eyes were still filled with anger. Even so, she dared to use the corpses of my Great Phoenix Dragon race. She deserves death. I can't let this matter go just like that. We never intended to shirk our responsibilities. Shangguan Jing heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Rong Xiu save Chu Liyue in time. In a flash, he appeared in front of Rong Xiu and Chu Liyue, confronting Mao Yao. "Mao Yao, we've let you down, and we've shown our sincerity to negotiate a solution with you. But if you're still so stubborn, then there's nothing to talk about." Elder Bo Yin had also reacted. He quickly followed up and said in a low voice, "Senior Mao Yao, we respect your honorable status, but it doesn't mean that we'll tolerate you doing whatever you want in Lingxiao College's territory. If you act wantonly again, we won't sit still and wait for death." Mao Yao was so angry that he panted heavily. Were the people of the Shangguan clan sick in the head? They were clearly the ones in the wrong, but why did they still speak like they were the boss? But this matter was really not easy to deal with. On one hand, the Yuntian Tower clearly wanted to support her. On the other hand, they were now in Lingxiao College. They were indeed in the wrong if they suddenly attacked. Both sides were in a stalemate. The many students who were watching below all held their breaths. They were extremely nervous. Before this, who would have thought that they would actually see such a crazy scene in Lingxiao College with their own eyes? In the silence, Chu Liyue gently patted Rong Xiu's hand. Rong Xiu glanced at her and frowned slightly. Chu Liyue smiled and shook her head, giving him a reassuring look. Rong Xiu then reluctantly let go of his hand. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and took half a step forward. "Taizu, Elder Bo Yin, I've said before that since this matter started because of me, then it's only right for me to bear the responsibility and solve it." Shangguan Jing and Elder Bo Yin looked at each other. They wanted to say something, but stopped. How could this matter be so simple? Chu Liyue didn't seem to care about the two's response. Her gaze was fixed on Mao Yao. "Senior Mao Yao, I'm afraid it's a little difficult for you to make me pay with my life. Why don't we use another method? As long as I can do it, I'll do my best to make up for it." She said it sincerely and seriously, but in Mao Yao's ears, it sounded like a joke. "Make up for it? With just you?" Chu Liyue nodded. "With just me." Mao Yao wanted to sneer, but when he saw that pair of dark and calm eyes, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. For some reason, he couldn't laugh anymore. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Actually, Shangguan Yu was right about one thing. With the protection of Yin Tian Ke and the Spirit Firmament Academy, it was impossible to take her life just by relying on this. Then, indeed, he could only use another method to make up for it. All right then, since you said so, I have two requests. As long as you can do it, this matter will be over. Chu Luiwe nodded. Please speak. Mao Yao stared at her. First, you have to retrieve the used bone from the legendary three-eyed eagle's body. Together with the rest of the corpses, they were returned in one piece. Second, I can spare your life, but as a punishment, you have to withstand 3 of my moves. As long as you can endure it, this grudge will be over. Before Chu Luiwe could speak, Shangwan Jing could no longer hold back. Mao Yao, don't go overboard. What level are you, and what level is Yu Er? If you let Yu Er withstand 3 of your moves, aren't you openly asking for her life? If you want to talk, then talk properly. Otherwise, don't talk so much nonsense. You're wasting everyone's time. Shangwan Jing was really angry. Mao Yao was an important existence in the great Phoenix Dragon race. His status was noble and his strength was tyrannical. However, Yu was only at the intermediate stage of the 9th level now. Not to mention 3 moves in one move, he was afraid that she would. Mao Yao sneered. Why? You can't accept it? Don't forget, she was the one who said that she would take responsibility for her own actions. Didn't you say that you were ambitious and unyielding just now? Why are you suddenly afraid now? I've also made it clear. If you really want to reconcile, agree to my conditions. If you don't, what I said earlier still counts. I also sincerely want to reconcile with you. Chu Luiwe suddenly spoke and interrupted Mao Yao. However, I can only agree to the second of your 2 conditions. Zichun is my contracted fiend. Since I've helped him reconstruct his body, I definitely won't let anyone destroy him. I can't, and I won't allow anyone else. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.